my wife is trending on the internet, but the person she is rumored to be with is not me. On the third anniversary of his marriage, Xiao Bufan prepared a candlelight dinner and waited for his wife Song Qingyao all night. But his wife went to IKEA with his first love Bai Yueguang and became a hot topic. His wife, who never liked to get close to him, let his first love hold her waist, with a gentleness on her face that he had never seen before. It was at this moment that he finally let go of his obsession and filed for divorce. After the divorce, when they met again, Song Qingyao realized that the son-in-law who had been cooking for her was actually so noble. Chapter 1. On their third wedding anniversary, Xiao Bufan prepared a candlelit dinner and waited for his wife the whole evening. However, his wife was out shopping at IKEA with her first love, white moonlight, and they were even spotted by reporters and trending on social media. His wife, who had never been close to him, allowed her first love to wrap his arm around her waist, and her face showed a tenderness that Xiao Bufan had never seen before. Xiao Bufan called her to confront her, but the response he received made his heart grow cold. I've been apart from Lu Cheng for 3 years, and now that we're reunited, what's wrong with me spending more time with him? After hanging up the phone, he collapsed in his chair. He had been in a secret marriage with Song Qingyao for 3 years, but he had still developed feelings for her. Even though she often video called her first love and even went abroad to spend New Year's with him, he thought that even without love, a marriage could still have mutual respect and loyalty. Now, he realized he had been wrong. In Song Qingyao's eyes, he was just a useless son-in-law, and compared to her first love, he was nothing. Now, it was time to end it. In the early hours of the morning, Song Qingyao entered the house to find Xiao Bufan carrying a large suitcase down the stairs. Recalling the message he had sent earlier asking for a divorce, her expression darkened. Why are you making such a scene in the middle of the night? Her voice was as cold as always. Xiao Bufan looked up upon hearing her voice. The soft light shone on Song Qingyao, creating a halo of hazy shadows around her. Even though he had decided to cut ties with her, his heart still uncontrollably skipped a beat upon seeing her. Don't flatter her anymore. Xiao Bufan warned himself and walked up to her, setting the suitcase down. From his bag, he took out a stack of papers and handed them to her. This is the divorce agreement. I've already signed it. Tomorrow, we'll go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to finalize everything. Song Qingyao furrowed her brows tighter. She couldn't believe that a person like him, who was so driven by vanity, would actually give up his luxurious life and agree to a divorce. Xiao Bufan, this is getting boring. Without even looking at him, Song Qingyao spoke in an impatient tone. She walked past him, heading upstairs to wash up. Seeing her about to leave, Xiao Bufan grabbed her slender arm. Song Qingyao, I'll leave everything behind. Song Qingyao stopped and turned abruptly to look at him, disbelief in her eyes. The man in front of her suddenly smiled, his voice laced with contempt and sarcasm. What? You can't bear to let me go? Song Qingyao had never seen him like this. She felt that Xiao Bufan had changed, but before she could process it, she was struck by his words can't bear to. She picked up the pen, turned to the last page, and indeed saw what he had mentioned. Her hand froze for a moment, but ignoring the wave of irritation rising within her, she signed her name. Then, with a snap, she threw the divorce agreement into Xiao Bufan's chest, her face showing a mocking smile. Whatever you want to play, I'll go along. Xiao Bufan replied indifferently, I'll be at the Civil Affairs Bureau at 10 a.m. tomorrow. I'll wait for you at the entrance. After speaking, he picked up his suitcase and left without looking back. He sat down on a bench by the fountain in the community. In the past, he often sat here, sometimes waiting for Song Qingyao to come home, other times just sitting, watching people pass by. Looking back now, he realized how humble and self-effacing he had been over the years. 10 years ago, a car accident almost took his life, and it was Song Qingyao who risked her life to save him. When the Xiao and Song families proposed a marriage, he immediately agreed, and after the wedding, he helped manage Song Qingyao's business. But unfortunately, Song Qingyao had long forgotten all of this. The diamond ring on his ring finger sparkled under the night sky. Xiao Bufan slowly took it off and placed it in his pocket. He took one last look at the 2-story villa that he had once considered his home before standing up and walking toward the community gate. In the distance, he saw a silver-gray sports car parked by the roadside, with a woman with an enviable figure leaning against it. Xiao Bufan let out a long breath, a smile appearing on his lips as he walked toward the woman. But as he got closer, he almost couldn't hold back his laughter. There was no one around, yet the woman was wearing a mask, sunglasses, and a baseball cap, covering herself up so much, one would think she was out at this hour engaged in some illicit activity. The woman, seeing the teasing look in Xiao Bufan's eyes, awkwardly turned her head. Professional habit. You know how my fans are. Xiao Bufan nodded. It was Qingyao, a top-tier beauty and actress, currently the most popular young star, and the most favored princess of the prestigious Qin family. She was also his best friend. Looking at Xiao Bufan's slightly cold face, Qingyang's eyes reddened a little. The man who used to be so lively and full of spirit had now become so forlorn. Xiao Bufan understood the look in her eyes. I'm fine, really. Qingyao opened her mouth but didn't know what to say. Instead, she reached out her right hand, placed it on Xiao Bufan's frail shoulder, and revealed her trademark smile as she said brightly. Welcome back, Bufan Ji. Chapter 2. Xiao Bufan nodded, his gaze growing more determined. Seeing his face soften, Qingyao finally spoke up. Where do you want to go? Your uncle's house. The word home instantly pulled Xiao Bufan from the cloud of divorce that had been hanging over him. He stared into the night, his eyes growing colder. My own home, he said firmly. Also, don't tell my uncle or my cousins about the divorce for now. 10 years ago, a car accident shattered his once happy family. His father died on the spot, and his mother became a vegetable. To this day, his mother still lies in the hospital on a cold, lifeless bed, kept alive only by various medical machines. Since then, he had been left as the orphan of the Xiao family. All of the Xiao family's assets were controlled by his aunt Xiao Fang and her husband Zhao Li. What's more, he had lost his memory after the car accident. It wasn't until 3 years ago that he regained his memories and was able to reconnect with his uncle. What's your plan next? Qingyao asked. Xiao Bufan paused for a few seconds before responding. For the past 2 years, I've been investigating the car accident that happened to my parents. Though there are few clues, I suspect that my aunt and uncle are somehow involved in it. He clenched his fists, the anger in his eyes flashing. I want to uncover the truth behind the accident, take back everything that belongs to me, and make those who harmed my parents pay for what they did. He had been reckless enough, the timing was finally right, and now it was time to go back and fight back fiercely. Qingyao, focused on driving, glanced at him with a hint of sympathy. Do you need my help? No need. I'll reach out when I need you. Xiao Bufan leaned back in his seat and closed his eyes. Before I go back, I need to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau with Song Qingyao and finalize the divorce. Qingyao dropped Xiao Bufan off at the house he had bought 3 years ago, then left. Although he didn't usually live there, the place was still fairly clean. Xiao Bufan lay down on the bed, and the past replayed like a movie in his mind. On the surface, he didn't care about the divorce with Song Qingyao. But deep down, he knew that despite their marriage lasting only 3 years, he had loved her for 10 years. Now that it had come to this, he still felt a sense of reluctance. Xiao Bufan got up, grabbed his computer, and erased every trace of him and the Song family. His eyes held a sense of finality as he muttered to himself, Song Qingyao, from now on, I no longer love you. He woke up the next morning at 7. He sent a message to Song Qingyao, setting up the time for their divorce. As soon as he stepped outside, Qingyang's car was parked right in front of her house. She drove him to the Civil Affairs Bureau. As they got out of the car, a sudden gust of wind blew through. Xiao Bufan instinctively pulled his coat tighter. Qingyao noticed his disheveled hair and casually fixed it for him. Thank you, Xiao Bufan said with a smile. At that moment, another luxury car pulled up at the Civil Affairs Bureau. Xiao Bufan and Qingyao both turned to look. Secretary Lin Xiao opened the door for Song Qingyao, who stepped out of the car, still carrying her cold demeanor. She exuded a natural elegance, giving off an aura of inaccessibility. Song Qingyao noticed Xiao Bufan and, seeing the stunning woman beside him, her eyes narrowed. She had thought that Xiao Bufan was just causing a scene yesterday and wouldn't he really show up for the divorce. But now, not only had he shown up, but he had also brought a woman with him. Qingyao, who had been smiling, suddenly grew cold. This was Song Qingyao. She looked all proper on the outside but acted worse than a dog. Just as she was about to confront her, Xiao Bufan stopped her. Yin, go back to the car. I'll come out once I finalize the divorce. Qingyao was a top celebrity, and it would be troublesome if anyone recognized her. She withdrew her gaze from Song Qingyao and smiled at Xiao Bufan. Okay, I'll wait for you. She then returned to the car. Song Qingyao coldly observed the affectionate display between them, then watched as Qin Yin got into her pricey limited edition sports car. A flash of displeasure crossed her eyes. They hadn't even finalized the divorce, and Xiao Bufan was already openly flaunting his new woman in front of her. Xiao Bufan, we're not even divorced yet. Watch your manners. I don't want to be the star of any gossip, she said, walking into the Civil Affairs Bureau. Xiao Bufan caught the sarcasm in her words, but he ignored the strange feeling that surfaced within him and entered the building. At the divorce registration office, Xiao Bufan quickly skimmed through the agreement and signed it neatly. He then turned to Song Qingyao. Sign it, he said. Chapter 3. Song Qingyao signed without hesitation, and they immediately began the legal process. There weren't many people going through divorce today, so everything was settled quickly. When the divorce certificate was handed over, Xiao Bufan felt a bit dazed. All the entanglements over the years were finally coming to an end at this moment. In his trance, he heard Song Qingyao leave a sentence, now that we're divorced, don't ever see Grandpa again. He had once saved old Master Song's life, and the old man genuinely liked him. Because of this, he had not been entirely bored during his time with the Song family. Xiao Bufan nodded, his smile tinged with sarcasm. Don't worry, I won't see your family again. Aside from old Master Song, there wasn't anyone else in the Song family who respected him. After saying that, he didn't give Song Qingyao a chance to speak and turned to leave the Civil Affairs Bureau. Seeing Xiao Bufan agree so decisively, without even looking back at her, Song Qingyao raised an eyebrow. In these 3 years, Xiao Bufan had shamelessly clung to her, but now he was acting so out of character, no clinginess at all, it truly surprised her. She followed him out. Xiao Bufan got into Qin Yin's car. Let's go. Millimeter. Qin Yin's eyes were filled with a mocking provocation as she looked at Song Qingyao, then suddenly raised her hand and gave her the middle finger. The next second, the convertible sports car made a sharp turn and sped off like the wind, arrogantly passing right by Song Qingyao. This sudden, bold move completely stunned Lin Xiao, who had been driving for Song Qingyao. He cautiously glanced at his boss's emotionless face and asked, President Song, the woman with the young master is Qin Yin, a popular little star from the entertainment industry. Do you want to take action? It seemed like the young master had been unfaithful to the president and was openly provoking her. Take action. Song Qingyao sneered. She's just an irrelevant person. Whether it was a man like Xiao Bufan or a celebrity, she didn't care. They weren't worth her attention. As long as they didn't embarrass her, she wouldn't bother. At that moment, Song Qingyao's phone rang. Seeing the caller ID, she answered the call. On the other end, Lu Cheng's voice came through, choked with sobs. Qingyao, the doctor said my legs are never going to recover. A month ago, Lu Cheng had been involved in a major stage accident and might never be able to stand again. Song Qingyao had been staying with him at the hospital, fearing that he might commit suicide. The results had just come in today, and they didn't sound good. Song Qingyao's brows furrowed tightly. Don't cry, I'll be there soon. Meanwhile, after Xiao Bufan got into the car, he remembered Qin Yin's childish act of flipping the middle finger and couldn't help but chuckle. What are you doing? Qin Yin snorted. I'm showing her disdain. I don't know how many women are flocking to you, and she's just discarding you like trash. She really has no taste. What's so great about her? Xiao Bufan grinned but didn't speak much. He could only say that the Song Qingyao from 10 years ago wasn't like this, which is why he had been so obsessed with her for so long. At that moment, the car's radio suddenly broadcasted a piece of news. New generation star Lu Cheng injured, embraced by Song Qingyao in the hospital room, suspected of rekindling their romance. The explosive news made Qin Yin's expression darken instantly. She quickly took out her phone and checked Weibo, where she saw that the trending topic, Lu Cheng and Song Qingyao rekindle their romance, had topped the list. The entire internet was flooded with news about Lu Cheng and Song Qingyao, along with a picture of the two of them embracing in hospital gowns. Qin Yin's emotions stirred up. She didn't even realize this was yesterday's news and couldn't help but curse Song Qingyao. This woman, just half an hour after the divorce, she's already flirting with another man. Bufan, since the collar is off, let her go eat dirt. Xiao Bufan leaned back in his seat. Hearing this, his heart suddenly skipped a beat. He hadn't expected Song Qingyao to be so eager to get back together with Lu Cheng. But it didn't matter anymore. He was already divorced from her. For him, the most important thing now was to take back the Xiao family, uncover the truth about his father's death, and reclaim everything that belonged to him. The car soon arrived at the Xiao Group. Qinyan wanted to accompany him upstairs. Xiao Bufan stopped her as she was about to open the car door and put on a family crest ring. "I'll go up by myself. You're a popular star now, don't get involved in this. Plus, you don't even know my abilities yet." Hearing this, Qinyan immediately stopped trying to open the car door. She smiled brightly, her eyes shining as she looked at Xiao Bufan. "I forgot. Xiao Bufan is truly an impressive person." Qinyan was eager. "Hurry up, I'm waiting for good news." As soon as Xiao Bufan entered the Xiao Group, he was immediately stopped by the front desk. "Who are you here to see? Do you have an appointment?" Xiao Bufan calmly answered, "No." The receptionist scanned him from head to toe, seeing that he didn't wear any high-end brands and looked ordinary. She responded coldly, "Sorry, you can't enter without an appointment." "Can't enter." Xiao Bufan twirled the black eagle ring on his finger. "What if I insist?" Chapter 4. The Black Hawk emblem is only worn by the Xiao family nobles, it is unique. The receptionist was extremely shocked. Although she didn't know who Xiao Bufan was, she immediately changed her cold attitude, walked up to Xiao Bufan respectfully, and bowed 90 degrees. "I'm sorry, I was blind. I'll prepare a special elevator for you right away." Xiao Bufan's eyes flickered slightly, and he asked with a cold expression, "Where is Zhao Li?" The car accident 10 years ago caused the death of his father and turned his mother into a vegetable. The Xiao family has always been managed by his uncle and aunt. To be precise, the Xiao family has always been in the hands of his uncle Zhao Li. Seeing Xiao Bufan calling the chairman's name directly, the receptionist became even more frightened and gestured to him to come in. "I'll take you there right away." "This way, please." When Xiao Bufan saw Zhao Li, he was in the conference room, holding a meeting with senior executives. Zhao Li recently took on a big project. As long as he completes this project, he will be able to transfer all of Xiao's assets to the company under his name. Xiao Bufan folded his arms and knocked on the door with a cold look. Zhao Lizhen was speaking happily when he was hastily interrupted. His face instantly darkened and he looked at Xiao Bufan, but suddenly stood up. The chair dragged on the ground with a harsh sound, like a heavy hammer hitting his nerves at a high speed. Xiao Bufan. Xiao Bufan, who had been missing for 10 years, actually came back. He is not dead. Everyone in the conference room was also shocked. Xiao Bufan looked at Zhao Li's surprised expression and said calmly, "It's me, uncle. Long time no see." Zhao Li looked at Xiao Bufan. When the accident happened 10 years ago, he was already 14 years old, and his appearance had basically not changed at all. At this moment, he suddenly remembered that 2 days ago, Xiao Bufan's uncle Jiyu Dongxue had called him and said that a special person would come to the company today and asked him to receive him well. He thought it would be a young lady from the Jiyu family who came, but he didn't expect that person to be Xiao Bufan. "Bufan, you are not dead. Where have you been for the past 10 years? Why didn't you come back?" Zhao Li quickly suppressed his emotions, pretended to be very friendly, and looked him up and down. Xiao Bufan looked at him calmly, pretending to be attentive, and said with a smile, "I didn't expect that my uncle missed me so much. Of course. At the beginning, your aunt and I used all our connections to find you, but there was no news. I thought you. After your father left, I had to force myself to run the company to protect the Xiao family. Bufan, you won't blame your uncle for this, right?" Xiao Bufan knew exactly what nonsense Zhao Li was talking about. But he did not expose Zhao Li. "How could I blame my uncle? All these years, thanks to my uncle's dedication to managing the company for my parents, Xiao Corporation is what it is today." He smiled, but the smile didn't even reach his eyes. "But now that I'm back, leave all the company's affairs to me." These words caught Zhao Li off guard. The big project he is working on is about to get financing. After the financing, all of Xiao's funds will be transferred to his name, and he must not give up power now. Zhao Li rubbed his hands, his face full of flattery. "Logically, now that you are back, I should hand over the company to you, but your aunt and I have been managing the company all these years. You have never worked in the company, and you are not familiar with many of the business operations. How about this? I will arrange a position for you in the company first, and then. Don't worry about that, uncle. Before Zhao Li could finish his words, Xiao Bufan interrupted him. Xiao Corporation was founded by my father. As the only heir, it is only natural for me to take over. Zhao Li was stunned by Xiao Bufan's tough attitude and frowned. He coughed, appearing to be concerned about Xiao Bufan. In that case, I will hand over the management of Xiao's to you. If you have any questions, just ask me. I will tell you everything I know. A cold light flashed in Xiao Bufan's eyes, but he smiled and said, I believe in my ability. I thought it would take some effort, but I didn't expect this old fox Zhao Li to fall so quickly. Good. This saves me from having to find ways to deal with him. Come out of the company. Xiao Bufan took a taxi directly to their villa where he used to live. During these 3 years, even after his memory was restored, he did not dare to go home. I am always afraid that the scene will remind me of my past and make me feel uncomfortable. But his uncle told him that he was afraid that his and his mother's home would be taken over by his aunt's family, so his sisters had been guarding the villa for him. If he comes back to live with us, we can still see each other often even if he is a little busy. Besides, living with my sisters gives me some comfort, so I don't feel lonely anymore. However, my aunt and uncle also live next door, so close that we can see each other every day. Thinking of this, Xiao Bufan's eyes, which had just softened, suddenly turned a little colder. She returned to the villa and was stopped by the security guard before she even entered the gate. Stop. The security guard saw Xiao Bufan was wearing a silk dress and got off a taxi. He was obviously not a rich man, so he said with disdain. This is a high-end area. How can someone like you barge in here? Get out of here right now. Xiao Bufan glanced at her home, then at the unfamiliar security guard. I'm the owner of this place, my last name is Xiao. The security guard couldn't help laughing after hearing this. Why are you pretending to be so arrogant? How can you afford a house here with your poverty? Get lost and stop interrupting my work. As the security guard spoke, his rough hands were about to grab Xiao Bufan's hands. Stop. A powerful voice made both of them stop what they were doing. The security guard looked back and found a group of servants running to the door from all directions, forming a formation, as if they were welcoming some important person. The security guard who had been so arrogant just now turned pale in an instant. It turned out that the person in front of him was really the owner. He knelt down in front of Xiao Bufan with a thump, his expression mixed with flattery and regret. I'm sorry, I didn't recognize the great man. But Xiao Bufan didn't look at him. He pinched his loose cuffs and said calmly, we in the Xiao family don't hire people who flatter the powerful and look down on the weak. As soon as he finished speaking, 2 tall men gagged the security guard and dragged him away. Only then did Xiao Bufan look at Butler Cheng, whose eyes were moist. Welcome home, young master. As Butler Cheng's choked voice fell, a more neat and powerful voice came from behind him. Welcome, young master. Chapter 5. Xiao Bufan nodded gently, then patted Uncle Cheng's arm gently. Uncle Cheng, thank you for your hard work over the years. After a welcoming ceremony, the servants dispersed and Uncle Cheng led Xiao Bufan to his former room. When he opened the door, the place was still the same as he remembered. Even the magazines on the bedside table were exactly the same as when he left. Xiao Bufan knew that it was his third sister Ji Yuhuan who had been taking care of things for him. Thinking of this, his heart warmed. Even though he was blinded by love at first and had a big fight with his third sister over Song Qingyao, she still loved him as much as before. Only here did he truly feel the warmth of home. Unlike the warmth and tranquility on this side, the other side is bustling with activity. On Yangjia Mountain Road, 2 cars were chasing each other. The red and blue cars were so fast that they were blurred. This championship competition had already turned into a life and death game. This car race, which is held once every 10 years, is the glory that all racers pursue throughout their lives. Everyone present holds their breath, afraid of missing a single second. In the dazzling red racing car, Ji Yuhuan held the steering wheel with a rebellious and arrogant look in his eyes. Looking at the blue racing car behind the bend, a complacent smile appeared on his handsome face. She is sure to win this championship. However, at this moment, a message suddenly rang in her earphone. You have a message from the housekeeper, do you want to accept it? Yes. I guess he was nagging her to be careful or something like that. Miss San, the eldest master is back. Just 9 words made stars rise in those passionate peach blossom eyes. My little brother is back home. Without any hesitation, the hands holding the steering wheel turned gently. And on the big screen in the audience seats, the red racing car, which had already gone some distance ahead, drove directly out of the racing track. At the same time, Ji Yuanwan's friend's exasperated voice rang through her earphones. What are you doing? Are you crazy? This is the European finals. If you leave the game midway, you will be disqualified. Ji Yuanwan raised her eyebrows, and it was not difficult to hear her joy in her voice. My little brother is back, I want him to see me first. Didn't you have a falling out with your brother? Why did you run back as soon as he came back? With your speed, you can finish this game in half an hour. Why are you in such a hurry? The friend was very disappointed with him and her anxiety could be heard over the phone. But Ji Yuanwan disagreed and interrupted her. In my heart, my little brother is more important than the champion. Well, forget it. People like you who don't have a little brother won't understand. Having said that, he cut off the connection. Friend, is it so great to have a younger brother? Xiao Bufan was unaware of this farce. He was staring at the family portrait in his hand in a daze. The family in the photo is smiling happily. At that time, his mother was not the unconscious state she is now. At that time, his father and brother were still alive. At that time, he was carefree. They were the happiest family in the world. If it hadn't been for that car accident, his family wouldn't have been broken up. She will definitely find the murderer and make them pay with blood. Xiao Bufan seemed to see again that bloody night, that reliable and strong embrace, and the man who saved her but forgot about her. So even if Song Qingyao didn't love him, he still thanked her, and they should just live their own lives from now on. The phone rang and Xiao Bufan came back to his senses. Brother Xiao, did you see it? Qinyan's voice on the other end of the phone was a little anxious, and Xiao Bufan answered in confusion, what did you see? The news of your divorce from Song Qingyao has been exposed. It's only been a short time, it must have been that scumbag who did it. Qinyan's voice was angry, and her tone was mixed with heartache. Although she didn't know who had suppressed the matter, she had a familiar reporter and still got the news. Xiao Bufan's heart clenched. Is she so impatient that she can't even wait for a day? Seeing that he remained silent, Qinyan on the other side became more and more angry. I think she just wants to make way for her sweetheart. She hid it better than anyone else when they got married, but now that she's getting divorced, everyone knows about it. This is simply disgusting. The voice on the other end of the phone was chattering, but Xiao Bufan remembered the photo he saw last time. In the photo, the man's broad shoulders were slightly bent, Song Qingyao was hooking his arm, and the two were clearly kissing. Song Qingyao had never treated him like this before, but now she was so humble in front of another man. It turns out that loving someone cannot be hidden. Xiao Bufan felt a lot of pain in his heart, but in the end, he just smiled bitterly. We are already divorced, let her do whatever she wants. Qinyan on the other end of the phone was about to speak, but was suddenly interrupted by an unbelievable voice. Xiao Bufan, you are actually alive. Chapter 6. The woman's voice was shrill and she looked at Xiao Bufan as if she had seen a ghost. Xiao Bufan looked up at the person who came and said to Qinyan on the other end of the phone, don't worry about this matter, I will take care of it myself. I have something to deal with here, so I'll hang up first. Then he hung up the phone. He put his phone aside and looked at the woman standing at the door. Why, cousin, should my being alive surprise you so much? Zhao Yinwei's eyes dodged for a moment, then turned into a confident tone. Of course I'm surprised. Where have you been for so many years without going home? Do you know that my parents are worried to death? Xiao Bufan stared at her while speaking and saw Zhao Yinwei's expression clearly. He gave a sarcastic smile and said coldly, are you so worried that you dressed up like a peacock and ran to my house to miss me? The cold tone startled Zhao Yang. Is this still the same Xiao Bufan who was so soft and had no temper that he allowed her to bully him? Then she realized that Xiao Bufan was actually mocking her in a weird way. Zhao Yinwei's eyes were blazing with anger, and he took 2 steps forward. Xiao Bufan, don't be so proud of yourself here. Let me ask you, are you targeting my dad in the company? Xiao Bufan glanced at her nonchalantly, yes or no, what can you do? Zhao Yangwei was immediately furious, he has worked so hard for your Xiao family, and you took away his power as soon as you came back. Do you have any conscience? This sounds just like the truth. But Xiao Bufan is no longer the orphan who was at the mercy of others. Noticing the shining necklace around Zhao Yanwei's neck, he raised a smile and said, "The necklace you are wearing is the finale of the last Chunxiao auction, the Eye of Poseidon. Did you work hard to get it?" A necklace worth tens of millions was used by her as a daily necessity. They really had the right to use Xiao's money. Zhao Yanwei subconsciously covered her necklace, with a guilty look on her face. Xiao Bufan said it calmly, but the hatred in his heart could hardly be suppressed. The parents have worked hard for so many years, but they have raised a family of ungrateful people. He looked down at the Black Hawk ring on his hand and said in a cold tone, "I wonder if the money my cousin spent on buying jewelry was from the Xiao family's public account or the Yin family's own money." The panic on Zhao Yanwei's face became even more intense. She bit her lip and was about to speak when she heard Xiao Bufan's cold voice. "But I remember that you don't have any shares in the company. Xiao's company will not give money to outsiders in the future." Zhao Yanwei's mind buzzed and her face turned pale. If Xiao didn't give her money, she would lose all her source of income. What would she do in the future? Why did Xiao Bufan disappear for 10 years and take away her things as soon as he came back? Zhao Yanwei was so angry that she pointed at Xiao Bufan's nose and started to curse, "I am your cousin, and Xiao Corporation is managed by my father. What right do you have to say such things?" The more she spoke, the angrier she became. She raised her hand high and was about to slap Xiao Bufan hard. But before her hand fell, it was grabbed by a big hand. "Where did the barking dog come from? How dare you act wild in front of my brother? It seems that you don't want this dog leg anymore." The woman's voice was like ice, causing Zhao Yanwei to shiver. She looked over and gritted her teeth in hatred. Jiu Lele. Why is it her again? Since childhood, Jiu Lele has always protected Xiao Bufan. If it weren't for her, her father would have transferred the Xiao residence to their Yin family's name long ago. It's really a nuisance. Jiu Lele, this is a matter between us, so leave it alone. Zhao Yanwei said as he was about to break free from her hand. Jiu Lele looked frivolous, looking at her with disgust in her eyes, and turned around and whistled, "Xiaomai, come and play with this guy who can't understand what people are saying." Xiaomai is Jiu Lele's snow mastiff. She was once trained in the army and is an extremely ferocious dog that protects her master. More importantly, Zhao Yanwei had been bitten by it before. Woof woof woof. Zhao Yanwei's face turned pale in an instant, and he ran out without caring about his image. When Xiao Bufan walked to the window, he saw Zhao Yanwei panicking and falling into the fountain in the courtyard. He ignored it, and when he turned around, he saw his third sister's doting eyes. The moment Jiu Lele noticed Xiao Bufan looking at her, her expression immediately turned cold. But she obviously has no talent for acting. Even though his attitude was very cool, Xiao Bufan saw every glance he made from time to time. He suppressed the amusement and bitterness in his heart, took 2 steps forward, and pulled the corner of his third sister's clothes like he did when they were little. "Sister, I'm back." The word "sister" made the man, who had his arms folded just now, unable to keep a straight face. Jiu Lele snorted, but the corners of her mouth turned up, and the dimples on her mouth made her look even sweeter. "You still remember to come back." Without waiting for Xiao Bufan to speak, she started muttering to herself. "What are you wearing?" "The latest clothes I bought for you will be delivered soon. Go and have a look later. Also, I remember you like to collect game controllers, so I bought them all for you." Xiao Bufan's eyes were a little moist, and his voice was hoarse. "Thank you, sister." Although his 3 sisters were from his uncle's family, each of them was very kind to him. In order to marry Song Qingyao, he and his sisters had a terrible quarrel, but when he came back, he was greeted with only endless love and heartache. The person to whom he had devoted his whole heart for the past 3 years only brought him scars and pain. Xiao Bufan suppressed the countless emotions in his heart and said softly, "Sister, Song Qingyao and I are divorced." Jiu Lele was stunned, and immediately exploded. "Why? You were determined to marry her at the beginning, and I was not optimistic about it. Is it because she treats you badly?" "That's Song Qingyao. In order to marry her, I not only concealed my identity, but also gave up the best opportunity to inherit the Xiao Group. But she actually let me down." As soon as Xiao Bufan saw Jiu Lele's expression, he knew what she was thinking. He cleared his throat. "I'm not that easy to be bullied. I'm just tired of her and want to change to someone new. The old one won't go without the new one. Sister, don't mention this person in front of me anymore. I want to embrace a new life." Jiu Lele paused, then patted Xiao Bufan on the head, and said cheerfully, "Don't worry, I have everything except women. I'll find 10 or 8 for you to choose from later. It's just Song Qingyao, what's good about her?" And at this time, the sky outside the window is clear, but the atmosphere in the office on the top floor of another skyscraper is like an ice cellar. Have you found out? Chapter 7. Lin Xiao placed the information in his hand on the table and said respectfully, "Mr. Song, this reporter said that he broke the news after receiving an anonymous email. We have also checked the address of the anonymous email. It is an abandoned factory with no one living nearby. The clue was cut off." Song Qingyao put down the pen in her hand, her dark eyes filled with coldness. "Have you checked the whereabouts of Xiao Bufan and that woman? The biggest beneficiary is often the most motivated." Speaking of this, Lin Xiao's expression became a little ugly. "What? Is there a problem? In fact, after we checked the abandoned factory, we checked Mr. Xiao as well. We checked the information provided by Mr. Xiao when he got married, but found that there was no such person. We could not find any trace of Mr. Xiao's whereabouts after he went to the Civil Affairs Bureau. It was as if he had disappeared from the city." Song Qingyao's eyes suddenly became sharp. Since nothing could be found, it meant that this matter was indeed unusual. Lin Xiao was frightened and shivered. He carefully expressed his guess, "I think Mr. Xiao must have gone to the countryside. Although this is the era of big data and there is no privacy at all, there are still places in the mountains that are not covered by the internet. There is no better answer than this." Song Qingyao nodded. "You continue to investigate." As she spoke, she rubbed her aching head and asked another question, "How is Grandpa doing?" The news was suppressed very quickly and the information didn't spread widely. "I've also talked to the hospital about this. The situation should be stable for now, but I don't think it can be kept secret for long." The old man almost treated Xiao Bufan as his own grandson and loved him very much. If he knew that Mr. Song and Mr. Xiao were getting divorced, there would probably be another bloody storm. Of course, Song Qingyao knew that she was not afraid of how her grandfather scolded her, but she was worried about the old man's health. After being raised abroad for so long, he has only gotten a little better. If something bad happens again. Song Qingyao put the document in her hand aside and picked up the next one. "This is a newly developed project. Is it time to renew the contract for the Xiao Group's project? The contract for this project is 5 years. It seems that less than 2 years have passed since the last signing. Why is there another contract?" Lin Xiao reported. "I heard that the person in charge of the Xiao family has returned. He used extremely tough tactics. He fired a general manager as soon as they met, stopped a multi-million financing project, and asked his legal team to review all the contracts of the Xiao Group. This swift and decisive approach is exactly the same as what Mr. Song did." After listening to this, Song Qingyao's bad mood eased a little, and a bit of appreciation appeared in her usually cold eyes. To be able to take control of a company that had been taken away from him for 10 years overnight is undoubtedly a shrewd and decisive person, and only such a person is worthy of being his partner. As he lowered his head to sign the document, he said in a good mood, "Please help me make an appointment with the new chairman of Xiao Corporation. I want to discuss cooperation with him." Lin Xiao nodded, turned around and was about to hand over to the secretariat, and heard the boss behind him add, "By the way, check the information of this new chairman. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you can fight 100 battles with no danger of defeat." Xiao Bufan had no idea that he had been targeted and had been planning his future at home. Taking back the property was only a small part of his plan. What was more important was to find out the real culprit behind the car accident. When he regained his memory 3 years ago, he actually did not doubt the car accident that year. At that time, he thought it was just an ordinary accident, and his heart and eyes were full of Song Qingyao, so the matter just passed. But in the past 2 years, seeing what his aunt's family did, he began to doubt what happened back then. In my mind, an idea slowly took shape. At this moment, the voice of Butler Cheng came from outside the door, "Master, your aunt and her family are here." Xiao Bufan sneered, "Okay, let them wait." He hadn't even gone to find them yet, but they came to him on their own initiative. This wait lasted half an hour. "Dad, he is just trying to intimidate us. How can we let our elders wait for so long?" Zhao Yan complained angrily, but was glared at by her father. "You'll have to speak nicely to me later. No matter what, he is now the chairman of the Xiao Group, and I have to please him. Who do you think you are?" Although Zhao Li was educating his daughter, wasn't he angry in his heart? He had been a superior man for 10 years, but now he had to live under the yoke of a young boy. This kind of humiliation made him extremely uncomfortable. But the old-fashioned people on the board of directors all stand on Xiao Bufan's side, so now they can only compromise. It seems that my uncle is more sensible. I need to learn from him. As soon as Xiao Bufan went downstairs, someone grabbed his hand. Then, a soft female voice filled with joy sounded. Bufan, it's good that you're back. It's good that you're back. Auntie is relieved. Xiao Bufan turned his eyes slightly and looked at the woman in front of him. She was dressed elegantly, and even though she was old, she had taken good care of herself, and it was obvious that she was living a happy life. However, at this moment, the woman looked at her and her eyes turned red. In his memory, his aunt was a very gentle person and was very kind to him. But now things have changed. I think about how my aunt and uncle took over the company immediately after the car accident, and the car accident that was shrouded in mystery. For a moment, I didn't know how to face her. Aunt, I'm back. Xiao Bufan withdrew his hand without leaving a trace. Is there something important going on so late at night? Be sure to tell me in advance next time so that I can prepare in advance. Xiao Wei looked at her nephew in front of her and wiped the moisture from the corners of her eyes. She caught a glimpse of Zhao Li about to speak, and immediately spoke up, interrupting him. It's nothing, it's just that Auntie was so happy to hear that you were back, and couldn't wait to come and see you. She wanted to see if you've grown up and changed, and to see if you've been doing well these years. Xiao Bufan naturally noticed the look in their eyes, but he didn't point it out. He just lowered his head and took a sip of red wine. We're doing okay, but definitely not as reckless as my aunt's family. The smile on Xiao Wei's lips paused. Bufan, you just came back not long ago, there are many things you don't understand. The company has changed a lot now. Many veterans rely on their seniority and refuse to obey discipline. They even dare to scold your uncle. It's because your uncle is honest that he doesn't dare to discipline them. Finally, let us get to the point. Chapter 8. Xiao Bufan's sleepiness disappeared and he looked at this honest uncle again. Aunt heard that you stopped a project as soon as you arrived at the company today. Over the years, the Xiao Group has been prosperous on the surface, but in fact it has been on the decline. If this financing project is negotiated, it will help the Xiao Group to revive. Xiao Wei's words were sincere, as if she was truly thinking about her nephew. Xiao Bufan didn't respond, just watched her quietly direct and act out the show. Zhao Li also cleared his throat and said, Yes, Bufan, you are young. Although your uncle has not done anything big in these years, he has accumulated some experience in this area. You are so reckless and will ruin the hard work left by your father. Of course not. In order to establish Xiao Corporation, my eldest brother only slept for 3 hours for a month and ended up being hospitalized for gastric bleeding. You can't joke about the company's affairs. Xiao Wei agreed with her husband and talked about Xiao Bufan's father again. As she spoke, she tried to hold Xiao Bufan's hand again. Xiao Bufan avoided it. Aunt said she came to see me today, but I feel like she cares more about the company than me. He looked at his aunt in front of him with a pair of clear eyes, and his voice was colder than the night. Xiao Wei was inexplicably startled and felt a little uneasy. She quickly explained. Silly child, we are doing this for your own good. Your uncle has finally negotiated such a big project. If it is snatched away by someone else, it will be a huge loss for the Xiao Group. If the group has problems, won't you be the one who suffers in the end? Hearing this, Xiao Bufan sneered in his heart. Hasn't he suffered enough? Xiao Bufan had no intention of socializing with them anymore, so he refused coldly. No matter who negotiated it, all projects must be checked to ensure fairness. As soon as these words were spoken, Xiao Wei and the other person's smiles immediately stopped. Zhao Yangwei had been holding back her anger all night, but now she finally couldn't bear it anymore. Xiao Bufan. So what if you come back? My parents have worked so hard for the company over the past few years that they almost moved their home into the company. You're going to destroy their hard work as soon as you come back. Do you still have a conscience? She really couldn't stand Xiao Bufan's arrogant attitude. Xiao Bufan stopped and looked at his cousin whom he had not seen for 10 years. He looked at Zhao Yangwei coldly. Since you don't understand these business matters, just be a brainless lady. Why do you have to get involved? Who are you calling brainless? Say it again. Zhao Yangwei walked forward with anger in her eyes, wanting to hit Xiao Bufan, but was frightened by the barking of a dog. She looked up and saw Jiu Lele walking down with his dog. "Who is keeping me awake so late at night? It turns out you are here." Jiu Lele was dressed in casual clothes and looked harmless, but Zhao Li, who had dealt with him countless times in the past few years, knew that was not the case. He quickly grabbed his daughter and scolded her. "What are you doing? Bufan just came back, so it's inevitable that he is a little confused. Even if he is unfamiliar with us and doesn't want to communicate with us, you can't do anything. My brother is not stupid, but he only communicates with people, not dogs. Don't you think so, Mr. Zhao?" Jiu Lele had already walked in front of Xiao Bufan. She sat on the sofa with the snow mastiff curled up beside her, looking extremely leisurely. Xiao Bufan held his forehead helplessly. His third sister's habit of protecting her own people came back again. Zhao Li felt more humiliated, but he had to bow his head because he was under someone's roof. Now Xiao Bufan is in control of the company. Before he succeeds, he can only put his daughter in an awkward position temporarily. "Xiao Wei, apologize to your cousin." "I don't." Zhao Yang held her neck high and refused to admit defeat. Asking her to apologize to Xiao Bufan, whom she had always looked down upon, was even more painful than slapping her twice. "Apologize? What? You don't even listen to me, do you?" Zhao Liban was already furious, and now being provoked by his daughter, he was completely out of control. He kicked Zhao Yangwei directly on the knee. Before Zhao Yangwei could understand what was happening, her legs went limp and she knelt in front of Xiao Bufan. "Cousin, there is no need to perform such a grand ceremony." Xiao Bufan didn't try to avoid it, but watched the farce coldly. He was extremely disappointed with his aunt's family. Zhao Yangwei was stunned by this. She got up from the ground, looked at her parents in disbelief, then glared at Xiao Bufan. Her mouth trembled for a moment, but she dared not say anything else. Finally, she slammed the door and left, leaving Xiao Wei and her husband alone. Xiao Wei took a deep breath, pinched her fingertips into her flesh, and forced a smile. "Bufan, don't bother with her. Wei Wei is just a little quick-witted, she doesn't have any bad intentions." She pulled Zhao Li up and gave Xiao Bufan instructions like an elder. "Your uncle knows more about the company than you do. You can ask him if you have any questions. We will go back first." Xiao Bufan sat in his original position and only raised his chin slightly. "Okay, take care." The couple walked out of the door with smiles on their faces, but their expressions immediately changed. They looked at each other and made the same decision tacitly. This night seemed calm and peaceful, but countless dark things were brewing underneath. Lu Cheng looked at the notification on his phone that there was no such content, and was so angry that he smashed the water cup in his hand. They are all a bunch of trash. But this matter cannot be settled just like that. So he found the phone number in the call log. "Here's a headline for you. Lu Cheng will marry Song Qingyao on a chosen date." After hanging up the phone, Lu Cheng's eyes were filled with pride. Although he knew that Song Qingyao liked him, Mr. Song tried to stop her. However, if he was accidentally followed by paparazzi, he would be forced to announce his feelings to the media. For the sake of his reputation, Qingyao will definitely marry him immediately. When it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Lu Cheng was walking in the garden and was accidentally followed by paparazzi. "Mr. Lu, I heard that Song Qingyao divorced her current husband. She divorced him as soon as you returned to China. Does Song Qingyao's divorce have anything to do with you? May I ask what your relationship is now?" Questions one after another bombarded his brain nerves. Fortunately, Lu Cheng had long been able to handle this kind of situation fluently. Listening to the reporter's questioning, Lu Cheng was not at all flustered or nervous. Instead, she acted very calmly in front of the camera, maintaining perfect demeanor and smiling calmly at the reporters. "Qingyao and I grew up together, and we used to be lovers who loved each other. I will announce the good news as soon as possible, so please don't speculate." Soon, the video of Lu Cheng being interviewed in the hospital was posted online. Entertainment reporters know best what can attract people's attention. Once the news that Lu Cheng is suspected to be about to marry Song Qingyao was released, it directly became the #1 trending topic. Chapter 9. When Lin Xiao heard the news, he was dumbfounded. He quickly told the public relations department to deal with the news as soon as possible and secretly prayed that Mr. Song would never see this news. But what you fear will come true. At this moment, Mr. Song is talking to Song Qingyao. You little bastard, you've become more capable now, haven't you? How dare you divorce Bufan without my consent? I'll give you 1 hour to get back here. Song Qingyao's brows tightened, and the unfriendly rebuke of Mr. Song came from the other end of the phone. Holding back her inner irritability, Song Qingyao stretched out her hand and tugged at her collar. Grandpa, I'm still working. Before he could utter the word, Zwa, Mr. Song blocked his answer again. Don't I know what kind of person you are? Come back, right now. After saying that, Mr. Song hung up the phone without giving Song Qingyao any chance to explain. Song Qingyao pinched her nose, then stood up, picked up her coat, and returned to the Song family's old house. The moment I stepped into the old house, she smelled a familiar and pleasant orchid scent, which was Xiao Bufan's favorite scent. The woman frowned slightly. She walked across the living room and met the lady who was coming downstairs. My dear, I heard that you are divorced. Don't lie to me, is this true? Song Qingyao's mother, Zhang Meiyu, hurried downstairs with an expectant look on her face and looked at her excitedly, as if she would be so happy that she wouldn't be able to sleep for 3 days and 3 nights if her daughter answered yes. Song Qingyao raised her eyes, with no expression on her face, and said, lightly. Good. Good distance. Speaking of Xiao Bufan, Zhang Meiyu's face was full of disgust. Xiao Bufan is just a poor guy. You will be unlucky for 8 lifetimes if you marry him. While being happy, Zhang Meiyu suddenly remembered another important thing. She suppressed her happiness and joy, staring at Song Qingyao closely. How much money did you give to Xiao Bufan? You can't let him get it for nothing. Song Qingyao raised her eyes, glanced at her, and spoke in a dull voice. He didn't ask for a penny. Would he not want money? Zhang Meiyu's mouth twitched suddenly, and her face showed an expression of extreme shock. But looking at her daughter's cold face, it didn't seem like she was lying. Humph, I didn't expect him to be so sensible. He knows he has no future and is too embarrassed to ask you for money. Hearing the word money made Song Qingyao, who was already irritable, even more irritable. Xiao Bufan never asked her for money. After 3 years of marriage, he never even touched the card I gave him. When he left, he didn't take any expensive shoes, watches, or luxury goods with him. Why? Song Qingyao had a sullen face, and a thought suddenly flashed through her mind. Xiao Bufan married her for these very reasons, so why didn't he take them away? My girl, go and fetch Lu Cheng back. Choose an auspicious day and get your relationship done. You missed such an excellent partner 3 years ago. You must seize the opportunity now and never let the duck fly away again. Zhang Meiyu's words brought Song Qingyao, who was slightly distracted, back to reality. After a long while, she said with a cold face, Grandpa knows that Xiao Bufan and I are getting divorced. The word grandfather successfully crushed Zhang Meiyu's inner joy. The old man had never liked her. She instantly wilted. Qingyao, go explain to your grandfather and don't tell him what you just said. Song Qingyao remained silent. After a few seconds, he was filled with irritation and ran straight to their backyard to find Mr. Song. Stinky girl, why on earth did you want to divorce Bufan? How come you don't know how to cherish such a good man? I heard that you divorced Bufan because of Lu Cheng. The old man gave her a lecture as if he was disappointed with her. You and Lu Cheng are not suitable. I don't agree with this marriage. Have you forgotten that he abandoned you to study abroad 10 years ago? Can a man who gave up you for his future treat you sincerely? Bufan is the one you should love and wait for the most. Sooner or later, you will regret it. Regret? Song Qingyao said calmly, without any ripples on her face, Grandpa, I won't regret it. The word regret has never appeared in Song Qingyao's dictionary. From the beginning to the end, she never agreed to the marriage with Xiao Bufan. If her grandfather hadn't been forcing her, she would not have married Xiao Bufan. Now she is just doing what she wanted to do 10 years ago. But Grandpa's illness has not yet recovered. She has always been filial and does not want to upset Grandpa again because of this incident and aggravate his condition. Grandpa, take good care of yourself. I'll come visit you another day. After saying that, Song Qingyao stood up and left. Asshole. Looking at Song Qingyao's gradually walking away, old Master Song almost vomited blood in anger. After leaving the old house, Lin Xiao came to pick her up. After Song Qingyao got in the car, she held her temples tiredly, but Lin Xiao was a little excited and said, Mr. Song, we have found the whereabouts of Mr. Song. Song Qingyao paused and raised her eyelids. Lin Xiao's voice was filled with joy. Our people just found out that Mr. appeared in a coffee shop in City M and took a few photos. Let me see. Song Qingyao took the phone, but after clicking on the file, the picture does not exist. What's going on? Lin Xiao's eyes widened in disbelief. I could clearly see it just now. Song Qingyao lowered her eyes. Lin Xiao had no reason to lie to her. There must be someone behind the scenes handling Xiao Bufan's whereabouts. Who is it and why is he doing this? Chapter 10. At this moment, Song Qingyao's cell phone suddenly rang. It was Lu Cheng calling. As soon as the phone was answered, Lu Cheng's panicked cry for help was heard. Qingyao, I'm blocked by paparazzi at the hospital. Where are you? Can you come pick me up? Accompanied by Lu Cheng's voice. His assistant's panicked voice rang out over there. Stop pushing, Lu Cheng has been pushed down by you. When Song Qingyao heard that Lu Cheng was pushed down, her heart tightened. Wait for me there, I'll be right there to pick you up. Song Qingyao raised her eyes, looked at Lin Xiao, pursed her lips and said, go to the hospital, and continue to investigate about Xiao Bufan. She gradually felt that Xiao Bufan's identity was not as simple as he said. At this time, Xiao was in the president's office. Xiao Bufan was wearing a black suit, holding a coffee cup in his hand, drinking coffee while browsing his phone. Seeing the news video about new generation traffic star Lu Cheng to choose a date to marry Song Qingyao, Xiao Bufan's eyes darkened and he clicked on the video. It is a video of Lu Cheng being interviewed by reporters at the hospital entrance. Facing the camera, he said calmly, Qingyao and I were childhood sweethearts. We were lovers who loved each other. I've given up on her once, and I don't want to give up on her a second time. Now that Song Qingyao is divorced, I will pursue her again and won't let her go again. Between the lines, he was secretly telling everyone that there was only one person in Song Qingyao's heart from beginning to end, and that was him, Lu Cheng, and Xiao Bufan was the third party who destroyed their relationship. Heh. Xiao Bufan smiled helplessly with a stiff and cold jaw. I thought I didn't care anymore. But when Xiao Bufan heard the man in the video say this, his brows furrowed and he felt his heart sink to the bottom. Cross out the video and click into the comments. In the age of self-media, news spreads very fast. Less than half an hour after the news that Song Qingyao and Lu Cheng might get married was revealed, the number of comments and clicks exceeded 10 million in minutes. I've heard that Brother Cheng and President Song were childhood sweethearts. If it weren't for that shameless third party Xiao Bufan interfering, they would have been married a long time ago. What's more, some people even started a heated discussion about Xiao Bufan. I heard that Song Qingyao's ex-husband came from the countryside and was a perfect son-in-law. I heard that Xiao Bufan is pretty good looking. I wonder who is better between him and Lu Cheng. Me. I have photos of Xiao Bufan, I can post them. I want to see it. Looking at those harsh and heart-piercing comments, Xiao Bufan raised his eyes and couldn't help but think of that person. But now that he has decided to leave, there is no turning back. Seeing someone in the comments saying they wanted to expose his photos, Xiao Bufan's pupils narrowed, and he had a bad feeling. Once someone really posts his photos online, a simple matter will become complicated. Xiao Bufan calmed himself, turned on the computer, and tapped quickly on the keyboard with his slender fingers. He directly hacked into the account of the person who wanted to leak her photos and check her identity, and then erased all traces of himself. No trace left, as if he had never been there. As soon as I closed the computer, my cell phone suddenly rang. When Xiao Bufan saw that it was Qinyan calling, he lazily raised his eyelids and asked, "What's the matter?" "Master, you can really sit still. Hurry up and check online. Your ex-wife actually teamed up with her lover to post the news of your divorce online, and even accused you of being a third party and a mistress." Qinyan on the other end of the phone sounded even angrier than Xiao Bufan. "That pretty boy actually dared to call you Sana. Is there any justice in the world? I have never seen such a shameless person." Xiao Bufan glanced at the news that Lu Cheng and Song Qingyao are about to get married, and his eyes darkened. "No need," he replied lightly. The news of divorce breaking out at this critical juncture will not do Song Qingyao any good, and may even do more harm than good. As soon as the news broke, it became the hottest topic. It's obvious that someone is behind this. This clumsy and stupid trick definitely didn't come from Song Qingyao. It's more like the work of Lu Cheng. Qinyan also realized that this was obviously premeditated. I'll go check it out right now to see if that pretty boy did it. Don't alert the enemy. Just tell me what's going on when you find out. Don't alert Lu Cheng yet. Xiao Bufan smiled coldly. You want to play, right? Okay, I'll play with him to the end. After talking about the bad things, Qinyan excitedly said to Xiao Bufan on the phone, Bufan, I set up a game in Yise. Too many things have happened during this period. You got divorced and took back the company. Why don't I take you out to relax your long-suppressed heart? Xiao Bufan was not interested at all and yawned lazily. I still have work to do, so I won't go. No, I'm here to take you out for some fun. Why don't you go? I've specially arranged for a beautiful lady to come and accompany you. You'll regret it if you don't go. Besides, I'm already downstairs at your company. Can you bear to let me make a wasted trip? Xiao Bufan didn't want to go at all, but he couldn't resist Qinyan's nagging. He went straight downstairs to find Qinyan. As soon as he left the company building, he saw Qinyan leaning against the car. She took off her sunglasses and whistled, Handsome guy, are you alone? Xiao Bufan smiled helplessly, otherwise, half a person will come out and scare you to death. Qinyan was successfully amused by him. After arriving at the night bar, Qinyan ordered a glass of whiskey for each of them. You don't know how upset I was when I saw the news today. Listening to her complaints, Xiao Bufan's mood gradually became calm. Xiao Bufan hadn't been to such a place of feasting and revelry for a long time. He drank cup after cup without changing his expression, as if he was drinking water. Handsome boy, it's boring to drink by yourself. Sister will dance with you. A sweet female voice woke him up from his tipsy state. After hearing this, Xiao Bufan paused, raised his head slightly and his eyes fell on the woman who had walked up to him at some point. He saw the woman with narrow shoulders and a thin waist, and a pair of charming peach blossom eyes staring straight at him. The lights in the bar made her look too beautiful. Ziyishuang looked at the man in front of her with admiration and interest. Xiao Bufan. Although they had only met twice, the first time she saw Xiao Bufan, his handsome face had already left a mark in Ziyishuang's heart. Qinyan walked between Xiao Bufan and Ziyishuang, holding Ziyishuang with one hand and Xiao Bufan with the other. You two look so serious, it's not like you don't know each other. Her playful smile broke the silence among the three people. What a coincidence, we meet again. Chapter 11. Ziyishuang raised her beautiful peach blossom eyes and looked at him with seductive eyes. Xiao Bufan has always been her favorite type. She had been thinking about him ever since they met 3 years ago, but there was no news from him in these 3 years. Now that Qinyan said he was there, she came. Of course. Xiao Bufan picked up the wine glass and drank it all in one gulp. It's a small world. What's the point of drinking? I wonder if I could have the honor of asking Mr. Xiao to dance with me. I don't know you well. Xiao Bufan is most easily tipsy. But Qinyan had organized the party out of kindness, and he didn't want to spoil everyone's fun, so he said, You are beautiful, you have the final say. Dynamic music started and the two of them started dancing passionately facing each other. Xiao Bufan placed his big hand on Ziyishuang's slender waist and followed her sexily dancing. Soon, they became the focus of the entire bar. Good boy. Brother Xiao hasn't been this wild in years. Qinyan was stunned. At the same time, on the second-floor observation deck, Jiangshan, who witnessed Xiao Bufan and Ziyishuang dancing, was simply in disbelief. How come this man looks exactly like Song Qingyao's ex-husband? She quickly took out her cell phone to record a video of a handsome man and a beautiful woman dancing, and sent it to Song Qingyao. In the Song mansion. After Song Qingyao picked Lu Cheng up from the hospital, she took him directly back to the Song mansion. What's going on with the interview? Song Qingyao's expression darkened after she entered the room, and her face was full of displeasure. Why did you tell the reporters about my divorce? Don't you know how much of an impact it would have on the Song Corporation if you announced my divorce to the media at this time? Lu Cheng frowned, and reached out to tug at Song Qingyao hand hanging by her side with a wronged look. Qingyao, are you blaming me for letting the cat out of the bag in front of the reporters? Looking at Lu Cheng's injured leg, Song Qingyao's heart softened. I don't mean to blame you, just don't accept any interviews for the time being. Got it. I won't cause you any trouble. Lu Cheng patted her head. I was blocked by reporters as soon as I left the hospital today. I didn't want to be interviewed. Song Qingyao paused for a moment to reveal the emotion in her eyes, and said, lightly. Does your leg still hurt? Song Qingyao reached out and touched his injured leg with a look of concern. It was quite painful at first, but when you touched me, it instantly stopped hurting. Lu Cheng shook his head and looked at her deeply. When she met his gaze, for a moment, another familiar face suddenly appeared in front of Song Qingyao. In fact, Lu Cheng's eyes are very similar to Xiao Bufan's, but Xiao Bufan's eyes are more stable. Suddenly, she felt a heat in her heart. What was wrong with her? She always thought of that man inexplicably. Seeing that Song Qingyao had been staring at him, Lu Cheng put his arm around her waist and put his face against Song Qingyao's soft belly. Qingyao, do you want to stay tonight? As soon as he finished speaking, a message suddenly came into Song Qingyao's phone. Bone Fingers picked up the phone. In the video, the man becomes the focus of the whole audience. He dances to the dynamic music on the dance floor, and his every move reveals seductive sexiness. Xiao Bufan. When Song Qingyao saw the man's face in the video clearly, her pupils suddenly tightened and she almost called out his name. Like him, but not like him. How could her husband, who was so dull, show up in public like this? He was simply a seductive witch. Song Qingyao stared at the man's every move in the video in disbelief. Although she didn't want to believe it, the person in the video was indeed him. Where has Xiao Bufan been for so long? It's like he disappeared from the face of the earth. She looked for him everywhere, but couldn't find any information about him. The next second, she saw a familiar figure standing in front of him, with slender hands touching his lower back, touching his skin. Okay, he is so nice. No wonder there has been no news from him after looking for him for so long. It seems he is having an affair with another woman and things are unclear. Song Qingyao's eyes darkened again. Not tonight, I have something to deal with. Looking at Song Qingyao's expression, Lu Cheng felt unhappy inside, but he didn't show it on his face. He looked at Song Qingyao and said, I'm sorry, Qingyao, did I cause you trouble? Seeing the caution and grievance on his face, Song Qingyao said gently, it's none of your business. You can take a rest. If you need anything, just tell the housekeeper. Thinking of the way she had just seen Xiao Bufan dancing closely with a woman, she could no longer sit still and immediately typed a few words, give me the address. On the way to the bar, Song Qingyao drove like crazy. Xiao Bufan, what kind of person are you? She wanted to see what tricks he could come up with. The car arrived at the bar. Song Qingyao's cell phone suddenly rang. She paused in pushing the car door and answered the phone. Lin Xiao's voice came from the other end. Mr. Song, I found out that the eldest son of the Song family is called Xiao Fan. I can't find any photos of him 10 years later, but I do have photos from 10 years ago. I'm collecting them now. It will probably take half an hour. Song Qingyao's handsome face was stunned, his eyes were dark for a moment. I want to see photos of Xiao Fan in half an hour. After hanging up the phone, she went straight into the bar. Here I am. Jiangshan met Song Qingyao through the noisy crowd and pulled her into the front row closest to the dance floor. Looking at the man in the center of the dance floor where the lights were focused, just tell me if it's cool enough or not. Song Qingyao was dressed in a formal suit, which made her look out of place in the nightclub full of lights and wine, but her eyes were fixed on Xiao Bufan. Thinking about the image of a good family man that Xiao Bufan had shown when he was in the Song family, and then looking at her style on the dance floor which was totally different from her past, Song Qingyao gritted her teeth secretly, and clenched her bony fingers with a creaking sound. This is his true face, right? Chapter 12. At this time, Xiao Bufan was still unaware of what was happening in the audience. He was having fun and wanted to continue dancing, but Zi Shuang hugged him and pulled him off the dance floor. After sitting on the chair, Zi Shuang looked at him with a sweet smile, you dance so charmingly. Are you praising me? Xiao Bufan shook the wine glass in his hand and drank the whole glass. What's the use of being charming? His wife, who has been married for several years, still doesn't love him. Putting down the wine glass, Qinyan saw them coming out of the dance floor and sat down next to Xiao Bufan. Xiao Bufan was a little drunk and no longer wore the tough outer shell he used to wear. He had let down his guard and his face looked gloomy and sad. You know what? I really like Song Qingyao. I've been waiting for her for 3 years, cooking for her, taking care of her family, and sympathizing with her hard work, but in the end, she doesn't care. She never looked me in the eye. Qinyan looked at him like this and said indignantly, Song Qingyao doesn't like you, that's because she is not so lucky. You leave her to escape from the sea of suffering. Yes, she has no vision. Xiao Bufan's sadness suddenly faded a little, and he curled his lips. After divorcing her, I got a new life. From now on, I will only live for myself and will not change for anyone else. However, just as he spoke his true feelings under the influence of alcohol, he raised his eyes and saw an extremely familiar cold face. The two people's sights met accurately. Xiao Bufan paused suddenly. Song Qingyao. How come she is here? Xiao Bufan's drunkenness immediately faded by 3 points. Considering that they are both divorced, there is really no need to say hello. He stood up and walked past Song Qingyao calmly, as if he had never known her. Stop. A cold voice suddenly sounded. Xiao Bufan acted as if he didn't hear it and continued walking forward. Next second, a strong force grabbed his wrist tightly, stubbornly not letting him go. Miss, isn't it okay to pull and tug in public? The distant name deeply irritated Song Qingyao's eardrums. She was stunned. It had been less than a month since the divorce, and he had forgotten about it so quickly. At this time, Qinyan rushed over and said, "Tell me what you have to say. Bullying a woman is nothing." She slapped Song Qingyao's hand away. Never mind. Xiao Bufan pulled Qinyan behind him, glanced at Song Qingyao, and said lightly, "Do you have something to ask me?" After being married to Song Qingyao for 3 years, she has never paid attention to herself. Now that she's divorced, she's in the mood. How ironic. Looking at the anger in her eyes, Xiao Bufan knew that she would not give up easily today. He didn't want to involve irrelevant people in their affairs. Go wait for me outside. Xiao Bufan nodded slightly to Qin Yin and Zi Shuang. If she dares to pester you, don't worry. Qin Yin is a star. If she gets into an argument with someone in a place like this and is photographed and exposed, it will definitely have an impact on her. So, at Xiao Bufan's strong request, Qin Yin and Zi Shuang went to the door to wait for him. Only Song Qingyao and Xiao Bufan were left. Song Qingyao, who had been ignored for a long time, finally couldn't bear it anymore. She grabbed his arm and said sternly, "Xiao Bufan, how much else have you hidden that I don't know about?" Xiao Bufan's face showed an expression of indifference. "Are you here to accuse me? Don't you think it's ridiculous to talk about this with our current relationship?" Song Qingyao frowned. "What is our relationship?" "Divorced." "Xiao Bufan, please don't challenge my bottom line again and again." Xiao Bufan didn't understand. They were divorced, so how could dancing with someone else be considered challenging his ex-wife's bottom line? Just as he was about to speak, Song Qingyao moved closer to him and asked, "Why didn't I see this side of you before? Which woman is yours?" She frowned, her tone full of warning, "Don't cheat on me." Xiao Bufan couldn't help but sneer when he heard this. "We are already divorced, what qualifications do you have to blame me?" There was no warmth in his eyes. "I've been playing with you for 3 years and I'm tired of you. There are thousands of women in the world. If you're not good enough, I'll change you." They were having a great time, but Song Qingyao ruined their appetite. Xiao Bufan lost interest and asked Qin Yin to take him home as soon as he came out of the bar. Song Qingyao was angry and a little confused. She felt that the scene just now was extremely unreal. This man had become something she didn't recognize at all. 2. She's already divorced, and she really has nothing better to do than to chase that man all the way here. Song Qingyao was so angry that she raised her leg and kicked the corner of the table next to her. Gar 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 gar. I could hear a burst of uncontrollable laughter. Witnessing what had just happened, Jiangshan almost fainted from laughing. I've known Song Qingyao for so long, but this is the first time I've seen her suffer a setback. Jiangshan walked up to Song Qingyao while laughing, staring at the direction where Xiao Bufan left. Interesting, a dull and boring good family man. Listening to her teasing, veins bulged on Song Qingyao's forehead. Jiangshan continued to chatter, "He's absolutely my type. Aren't you two divorced? So you don't mind me pursuing him, right?" Song Qingyao clenched her fists tightly. "You weakling, try to touch him." The words haven't finished yet. The phone in her pocket suddenly vibrated. It was Assistant Lin Xiao who called. "Mr. Song, I found the photo of the eldest young master of the Xiao family from 10 years ago. I have sent it to your email." Upon hearing this, Song Qingyao's handsome face became solemn in an instant. He hung up the phone and went straight to check the photos. Looking at that face that couldn't be more familiar, Song Qingyao felt like she was struck by lightning, and she stood there in a daze. Xiao Bufan. No wonder she couldn't find him these days. All kinds of doubts and details were intertwined in her mind, forming a complete line. The person who disappeared out of thin air and then reappeared was the person she had been looking for all these days. This is his true identity. Chapter 13. Jiangshan caught a glimpse of the person in the photo and was shocked. The Xiao family has always claimed that the eldest young master of the Xiao family disappeared 10 years ago. I didn't expect that he would be a good husband to you. This is so exciting. Facing the cold gaze from Song Qingyao, Jiangshan clicked her tongue and said, he is the only successor of the Xiao family. He has been your husband for a few years for nothing. You are not losing out. Jiangshan seemed to have just realized what was happening, and asked in surprise, if you really think he is your ex-husband, why would you leave your work and rush here as soon as you heard that Xiao Bufan was here? I say, you don't regret divorcing that person, do you? Song Qingyao was in no mood to pay attention to her teasing at the moment. All she could think about was the eldest young master of the Xiao family who had been missing for many years, was actually Xiao Bufan. Check it out for me. Investigate who? Xiao Bufan. Song Qingyao's face was gloomy, and she said, faintly. Jiangshan curled the corners of her mouth, narrowed her beautiful amber pupils slightly, and couldn't help but sneer. No, sister, regardless of whether Xiao Bufan is the eldest son of the Xiao family, you have already divorced. Haven't you reunited with your confidant Lu Cheng, who is still in a relationship with you? Why are you still thinking about your ex-husband? Hearing Jiangshan's unpleasant words, Song Qingyao almost couldn't hold back her anger. Feeling her depressed mood turning even darker, Jiangshan lowered her eyelids after a few seconds. Okay, the auction will be held the day after tomorrow. I'll invite him over then. If you have a good chat with him, all the mysteries will be revealed. I can't even do it, how can you invite him? Song Qingyao expressed his doubt. Who are you looking down on? Jiangshan was full of confidence, with my looks, no man can resist me. Song Qingyao was already in a depressed and irritable mood. Looking at her narcissistic appearance, she turned cold and left the bar. Sitting in the car on their way back to Song Mansion, Song Qingyao was upset by the fact that Xiao Bufan was actually the eldest young master of the Xiao family, and her face was as gloomy as the temperature in the coldest days of winter. As soon as she entered the door, she was hit by the faint scent of orchids. She was very familiar with this smell. It's the smell of Xiao Bufan. Song Qingyao returned to the bedroom, sniffing the fragrance. The room was still decorated by Xiao Bufan. The sheets, quilts and curtains were all light blue, with a fresh and elegant style, filled with the faint scent of orchids. Looking at the familiar yet unfamiliar environment, past events came to her mind frame by frame like a movie. Xiao Bufan's presence and his scent were everywhere in the room. In the 3 years of marriage, he respected his elders and managed all the big and small matters at home in an orderly manner, never letting her worry about household affairs. Recalling the past, Song Qingyao's face was unconsciously covered with a layer of gloom, and it seemed as if a stone was blocking her heart, making it difficult for her to breathe. Song Qingyao's eyes vaguely flashed with the image of Xiao Bufan wearing an apron and happily cooking soup for her. His gentle smile slowly burned her eyes. A familiar voice came to my ears. Qingyao, I have washed all your clothes for you. Today is your birthday, and I made you a cake myself. Qingyao, are you working overtime again? Go home early. For some reason, she always felt like something was missing from her heart. At this time, the Xiao family. Xiao Bufan leaned back in his chair, looking at the bustling night scene outside the car window, and suddenly Song Qingyao's cold face appeared in front of him. He loved her and was heartbroken for her. But this love was destroyed by Song Qingyao. As he was thinking, Qin Yin came over and said, Song Qingyao actually came to this place to find you in person. Could it be that she remembered your kindness and came after you to try to reconcile and get back together with you? Impossible. A familiar face that was cold to the bone suddenly appeared in front of Xiao Bufan, and he sneered sarcastically, I know Song Qingyao, she has never liked me, Lu Cheng is her sweetheart. Song Qingyao has waited for Lu Cheng for so many years, which shows how important he is to her. Ziyishuang sat on the other side of Xiao Bufan, looking at his face and muttering, Song Qingyao is unlucky. She doesn't cherish you, but I do. Xiao Bufan knew that she was trying to comfort himself, so he smiled and said nothing. Qin Yin, who was standing by, so that the conversation had become dull and quickly started another topic. The next day. The consequence of a hangover is a splitting headache. Xiao Bufan slept until dawn. When he woke up, his temples were throbbing and his headache was terrible. For a moment, he was completely dazed. Woke up. Seeing Xiao Bufan open his eyes, Ziyi poured him a glass of water and handed it to him. Drink some warm water to moisten your throat. After being burned by alcohol all night, Xiao Bufan was extremely thirsty and drank a glass of water in a few big gulps. He raised his head and glanced at the familiar surroundings, his voice as hoarse as a broken gong. Thank you. After he finished washing up, Qinyan came back with breakfast. While eating, she looked at Xiao Bufan and said, accompany me to an auction next Friday. No. The company was in a state of disrepair, so Xiao Bufan had no intention of attending any auction, unless he was crazy. Qinyan's eyes flashed, and she raised her voice, raising her eyebrows. You will regret it if you don't go. Chapter 14. Qinyan then explained why she had to go. Do you still remember the small 3-color porcelain bowl of Tang dynasty that Uncle Xiao loved the most when he was alive? It was sold by your uncle 3 years ago. I heard that the person who bought your father's 3-color porcelain bowl is also bidding at this auction. Don't you want to redeem it? When Xiao Bufan heard that his father's favorite Tang Sansai was actually sold by Zhao Li, he suddenly became furious. His face darkened for a moment, and his hanging fingers tightened silently. In the past few years since I left, some people are really unsatisfied. Seeing his expression change, Qinyan struck while the iron was hot. I just happen to have 2 invitations, go by that one and be my male companion. Xiao Bufan nodded and agreed. After this matter was finalized, Qinyan pursed her lips in excitement when she thought of what happened in the bar yesterday. Song Qingyao is not a simple character. Since she took over the Song Group, she has led the Song Group out of the bottleneck in just 2 years and has been at the forefront of all companies. It is not unreasonable to call her the living devil of the business world. But there is no need to worry, after all, Brother Xiao is finally back. She straightened her face and said, Brother Xiao, you said you have so many identities, but Song Qingyao couldn't find any of them. TSK, she is so weak. Qinyan stood there, looking at Xiao Bufan's expressionless face. She couldn't help feeling sick when she thought about all of Lu Cheng's actions abroad over the years. You don't know what Lu Cheng did abroad. He claimed that he went abroad for further studies, but in fact he took every opportunity to use hidden rules to get promoted. The bigwigs in the circle he met covered 5 oceans and 8 continents of different genders, and even men and women. Qinyan was so angry that she had secretly investigated all of Lu Cheng's past since the day Xiao Bufan divorced him. Now that this matter is mentioned, Qinyan's lips curled up with a sneer. I just don't understand. Lu Cheng is such a rubbish. What does Song Qingyao want? She even made the old man of the Song family sick because of him. I really doubt if she has water in her brain. When Xiao Bufan heard that the old man was ill, his expression finally changed several times. The old man is ill. When did it happen? When the news of your divorce from Song Qingyao was first exposed. Qinyan said. Suddenly, Xiao Bufan frowned. The old man was very nice to him. Now he is ill and he is no longer in a position to intervene. He looked at Qinyan with cold eyes. You don't understand Song Qingyao. With her love for Lu Cheng, she has waited for so long. Lu Cheng is the white moonlight in her heart. She may not be unable to accept his unbearable behavior. Just leave this matter to me. I'll help you teach him a lesson. Xiao Bufan shook his head, his expression solemn and serious. No need, Song Qingyao and I have already divorced, and I don't want to interfere in anything about her. Xiao Bufan had a cold face, and his heart trembled violently because of what Qinyan said about Lu Cheng's glorious achievements when he was abroad. How could he say that it didn't hurt? Hearing his usual cold tone, Qinyan respected his decision and said nothing more. At this time, the Song family. After Song Qingyao came back from the bar yesterday, she couldn't calm down for a long time and sat there all night. Until there was a sudden knock on the door, breaking the silence in the room. Listening to the sound of the rubber wheels of the wheelchair sliding across the ground, Song Qingyao suddenly raised her head and saw a figure coming in from the door. Qingyao, what's wrong with your face? Lu Cheng's legs have not fully recovered yet. He sits in a wheelchair with his legs covered with a plush blanket that was knitted by Xiao Bufan himself and has his favorite apricot blossom pattern on it. Seeing that he had been staring at him without saying anything, Lu Cheng followed his gaze and looked at the blanket. Qingyao? What's wrong with you? Is there anything else that doesn't feel right besides your face? It's okay, just a minor injury. Song Qingyao replied indifferently. Lu Cheng let out a long breath, his face full of heartache for her, and reached out to touch her face. It must be painful, right? Song Qingyao was silent for a moment, his handsome face was cold and distant, and with a slap, he slapped his hand away with not too much force. It's okay. Lu Cheng's already pale face was suddenly covered with a trace of grievance, and Song Qingyao actually pushed him away. Chapter 15. This would never have happened in the past. All of a sudden, anger, grievance, unwillingness, all the emotions gathered in his heart, as if a big hand was tearing him apart. Forget it, since she didn't say anything, he didn't ask any more questions. Anyway, Song Qingyao has agreed to get married, and she will be mine sooner or later. Thinking of this, Lu Cheng suppressed his bad emotions and said, Qingyao, wait for me. I'll get you some ice to help you get better. Without waiting for Song Qingyao to say anything, Lu Cheng pushed the wheelchair away. When he came back, he had hidden all his bad emotions deep in his heart, except that his eyes were slightly red. Lu Cheng took some ice cubes, wrapped them in a towel, raised his hand, and carefully handed them to Song Qingyao. Is it better? Song Qingyao bent down slightly and took the ice compress with her bony fingers and applied it to her face. I can do it myself. The room was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. Lu Cheng looked at the woman's captivating face. Even though she had missed her for so many years, her heart was still moved. He said silently in his heart, Song Qingyao is his. Lu Cheng's sweet voice sounded at the right time. Qingyao, I came here today mainly to tell you about us. My mother asked about our marriage again yesterday. She said she went to the temple to choose an auspicious day for me at the beginning of next month. She wants us to get married next month. Song Qingyao frowned. Although she had agreed to get married, she didn't expect it to happen so soon. Seeing that she remained silent, Lu Cheng's heart sank, fearing that Song Qingyao would regret it. Qingyao, you are not regretting it, are you? Feeling his burning gaze, Song Qingyao felt a little dazzled, and her cold eyes paused in a daze. She loved his eyes so much in the past, and she still loved them now. Without Lu Cheng, I wouldn't be who I am today. It was Lu Cheng who risked his life to save her from the sea of fire, and it was Lu Cheng who gave her a second life. Song Qingyao is not an ungrateful person. Lu Cheng saved her life, and it is her responsibility and obligation to take care of him. I've missed you for so many years. I don't want to miss you again. I'll listen to you. You promised to marry me next month. Hearing this, Lu Cheng was instantly overjoyed. Song Qingyao looked at him and nodded in agreement. Just then, the ringing of the cell phone broke the atmosphere. Song Qingyao picked up the phone. Hello. Lin Xiao's voice came from the other end of the phone. Mr. Song, I have only found the previous ones, but putting the previous information together with the information I found this time, the time when Xiao Bufan appeared next to you is a bit too coincidental. Song Qingyao tightened her grip on the phone. Send me the information. Yes. Then with a ding sound, she received a folder from Lin Xiao. 3 years ago, she had just had surgery and had not recovered for long when she accidentally spent a night with Xiao Bufan. In addition, his grandfather remembered that Xiao Bufan was the savior of the Song family, which gave him the opportunity to take advantage of the situation. But the eldest son of the Xiao family had been dead for 10 years, and Xiao Bufan had married her 3 years ago. Where had he been during this period? What had he done? What is his real identity? What is his hidden agenda in marrying me? One question after another flooded into Song Qingyao's mind like a tidal wave, making her restless and extremely irritable. Let's meet Xiao Bufan. I want to see him. Chapter 16. Song Qingyao's eyes were dark and unclear, and she spoke coldly with an upset mood. As Lin Xiao dug deeper into Xiao Bufan's background, he became more and more confused and curious about the life experience of this gentleman of his family. But then again, he is now the CEO of Xiao Corporation and is very busy with official duties, so it is not easy to arrange a meeting with him. Mr. Song, Mr. Xiao is now the head of Xiao Corporation. It may not be easy to make an appointment with him. Lin Xiao said nervously, I just called and they said that Mr. Xiao's appointments are all booked after the new year. After the new year? Song Qingyao didn't expect that the man would not see her, and her face instantly turned cold. Come and pick me up, I will go to see him in person. Yes. Lin Xiao responded respectfully. Looking at Song Qingyao with a sullen face after hanging up the phone, Lu Cheng, who vaguely heard the content of his conversation with Lin Xiao just now, began to feel nervous. He asked casually, "Qingyao, are you going to meet the eldest young master of the Xiao family?" "Yeah." Song Qingyao's eyebrows moved, and her expression was indifferent. "It's about work." 1 month later would be her wedding day with Lu Cheng. As her ex-husband, there was really no need for her to mention Xiao Bufan in front of Lu Cheng at this critical moment. But somehow, when she thought about him getting married to Lu Cheng in the near future, she always felt empty in her heart, and even that familiar face inexplicably appeared in her mind. Song Qingyao inexplicably felt as if something was grabbing her heart, and she felt restless inside. She took a deep breath and suppressed the inappropriate thoughts. Seeing that Song Qingyao didn't mention it to her, Lu Cheng didn't ask any more questions. At this moment, the only thing on his mind was his wedding with Song Qingyao in the near future. Nothing else mattered. "Have a good rest. I have something else to do. I'll leave first." Looking at Song Qingyao's straight back, Lu Cheng opened his mouth slightly, wanting to keep him, but just as he was about to open his mouth, he remembered that she seemed to have mentioned Xiao on the phone at that time, so he could only swallow his words back. After Song Qingyao left, Lu Cheng had been busy all the time, his heart completely filled with the young master of the Xiao family. Xiao is also the surname Xiao. He suddenly had a very ominous premonition in his heart. "I finally managed to snatch Song Qingyao back from Xiao Bufan, and I must not let the duck fly away again." Thinking of this, a dark light flashed in his eyes, and he immediately called his assistant. "Immediately check all the information about the eldest young master of the Xiao family and send it to me quickly." "Yes." The assistant who received the call was a little flustered, but still quickly agreed to do it. Soon, the assistant sent the information about the eldest son of the Xiao family to Lu Cheng's email. On their way to Xiao Group, Song Qingyao sat in the back seat of the car with a cold voice, looking out the window at her pair of dark eyes filled with emotions that were difficult to discern. Lin Xiao was driving, feeling excited and stimulated. If Song Qingyao hadn't given the order herself, he would never have dreamed that his master was on her way to meet her ex-husband. "I don't know what the scene will be like in a while." At this time, at the entrance of Xiao Group, as Xiao Bufan got out of the car, he saw a familiar figure walking towards him. Chapter 17. "Uncle Zhang, are you waiting for me?" As they were talking, the two men stood face to face. Zhang Zhirong was wearing a black suit and tie. Although he was over 50 years old, it could not hide his capable and elite temperament at all. The black suit highlighted his sharpness and shrewdness to the fullest. "Bufan, I want to talk to you." Zhang Zhirong followed Xiao Bufan's eyes and reported to him as he walked towards the company entrance. "Is there any progress with what I told you to do last time?" Xiao Bufan frowned. Zhang Zhirong nodded slightly, staring at him with sharp eyes. "Someone on the board of directors is secretly making small moves. You just returned to the company and your foundation is unstable. The old foxes on the board of directors are watching you. You must be extra careful. Now is the critical moment for you to take power. You must not let them catch you." Xiao Bufan said softly, "Uncle Zhang, don't worry, I know what's going on." After all, he had been away for 10 years. Although he had regained the management rights of Xiao Corporation and was in control of the company, those old guys on the board of directors would definitely not obey him behind his back. In addition, as soon as he joined the company, he terminated projects and fired people, touching other people's cake. It would be abnormal if those people did not make small moves in private. Xiao Bufan was distracted by the old guys on the board of directors. When he walked to the door, he looked up and a familiar and beautiful figure instantly caught his eyes. "Song Qingyao? What is she here for?" When Xiao Bufan saw the person coming, he was stunned and paused. Zhang Zhirong stood behind Xiao Bufan, his eyes fixed on Song Qingyao. "Isn't he this Mr. Song's grandson Song Qingyao?" Thinking back to the time when Mr. Song founded the Song Group, it was so glorious and glorious. It was a pity that the Song family did not have enough younger generations. It was not until Song Qingyao was supported to take the position that the prosperity of the Song family was revived. "How come Mr. Song is here?" Zhang Zhirong stared at Song Qingyao in amazement, his words full of admiration and praise. He turned to introduce Xiao Bufan. "You may not know this just now, but within 3 years of Song Qingyao taking over the Song Group, she has brought the Song Group from the bottom to the top. Now the Song Group has occupied half of the business world and has developed into a leading enterprise. Xiao Bufan looked at the person opposite him calmly, without any expression. Zhang Zhirong continued, "If we can cooperate with the Song Group, our future will be limitless. Your career in the company will be easier. At that time, you can use the Song Group to fight against those old guys on the board of directors and completely eliminate the remaining forces of Zhao Li." The idea was great, but he didn't want to have anything to do with Song Qingyao again in his life. Whatever he wants, he will fight for it with his own ability and will never consider Song Qingyao's face again. A trace of sneer flashed across Xiao Bufan's eyes, and he said indifferently, "Uncle Zhang, she is my ex-wife." Hearing this, Zhang Zhirong was struck by lightning and was completely stunned. He stared at Xiao Bufan in astonishment, and it took him a long time to come back to the fact that Song Qingyao was Xiao Bufan's ex-wife. "I heard before that Song Qingyao didn't like her husband, that he liked someone else, and that he was having an affair with another man during their marriage." But Zhang Zhirong never expected that the person Song Qingyao cheated with was actually Xiao Bufan. In an instant, all his good feelings towards Song Qingyao disappeared. Xiao Bufan's father was very kind to him when he was alive. Now that Xiao Bufan was being bullied like this, how could he just sit back and do nothing? "Bufan, as long as Uncle Zhang is here, I will never let you suffer any injustice. I will help you teach her a lesson." As he said that, he walked towards Song Qingyao, but was stopped by Xiao Bufan the next second. Chapter 18. Uncle Zhang. Xiao Bufan looked at Zhang Zhirong, who was about to vent his anger for him, and shook his head at him. "She doesn't know my true identity yet." Zhang Zhirong's sharp eyes shook slightly. Although he didn't know Xiao Bufan's plan, he couldn't act rashly anymore. Thinking of this, he looked at Xiao Bufan with his sharp eyes, nodded, and returned to his original place. At this time, Lin Xiao walked up to Xiao Bufan and said politely and respectfully, "Mr. Xiao, our President Song wants to talk to you." Xiao Bufan snorted coldly, "Boss Song? Do I know her?" Lin Xiao was stunned by these words. After following Song Qingyao for so many years, this was the first time he saw Mr. Song take the initiative to invite someone else, but was turned away. "Is this still Mr.?" He was not like this before. He glanced at Xiao Bufan with silent shock, his expression slightly startled. "Mr. Song came here with sincerity, how about we go in and talk first?" "That's not necessary." Xiao Bufan curled his lips, "Sorry, I have to meet a lot of people every day. If you want to see me, you'd better go and queue up first." Watching the two people pulling each other, a thick layer of frost covered Song Qingyao's eyes, and she glanced at Lin Xiao, signaling him to step back. Countless indescribable emotions filled her heart, her thin lips were tightly pursed, and she felt indescribable anger in her heart. She walked forward, looked at Xiao Bufan and said word by word, "What happened 3 years ago? Why was it such a coincidence that I met you as soon as I recovered from my illness?" She had previously suspected that he was the one who did that one-night stand, but if he was the eldest son of the Xiao family, why would he have needed to do that? 3 years ago, these heavy words made Xiao Bufan stop suddenly. He turned around and stared at her cold face. During those 3 years he took good care of her and gave her everything he had. Now that he has chosen to leave her and let her be with his childhood sweetheart, what else does she want now? It would be ridiculous to ask him now if this was too much. "Miss, I don't understand a word you said." Xiao Bufan's mockery was silently magnified in his eyes. "I don't even know you, I don't know what you are talking about." His face was extremely cold and he shook off the woman's hand. Song Qingyao frowned and pulled harder. "I don't have time to play with you. Why did you approach me 3 years ago?" As a bystander, Zhang Zhirong did not want to interfere in Xiao Bufan's private affairs, but he saw that Song Qingyao's face was getting uglier and uglier. After all, she was the one who wronged Xiao Bufan first and had an extramarital affair. Zhang Zhirong was afraid that he would do something bad to Xiao Bufan again. So he walked towards Song Qingyao, stood between the two of them, and protected Xiao Bufan behind him. He looked left and right, pretending to be a peacemaker. "It's not impossible for Mr. Song to invite our Mr. Xiao, but you just need to draw a number. Mr. Song has to draw lots if he wants to see the gentleman." Lin Xiao, who was standing aside, was truly amazed at what he had seen. Then, Zhang Zhirong called the company's front desk and said, "Go get an invitation form for Mr. Song." "Yes." The front desk clerk did as requested. The front desk clerk brought the invitation form and handed it to Song Qingyao politely and respectfully. "Mr. Song, please." Looking at the invitation list, Song Qingyao frowned and looked stern. When had she ever been treated like this? But Xiao Bufan was too abnormal after the divorce. In order to get to know more about her ex-husband who had changed into someone else, she endured it. Song Qingyao had a cold and serious face and followed Zhang Zhirong's wishes. Soon after receiving a notification from the TI system, Zhang Zhirong pretended to take a serious look at the result, then gave Song Qingyao a number plate with an apologetic look on his face. "Boss Song, I'm really sorry, our boss Xiao's invitation number has been scheduled for 6 years later. Please come back to see Mr. Xiao in 6 years with your number plate." Song Qingyao, who was given face, looked at the number handed to her and her face turned completely dark. She felt a great sense of shame. She was stunned and so angry that she didn't say another word. If she didn't want to see him, then she wouldn't see him. Who wanted to see him? She took the initiative to come to see him, but he turned her down and even used the lottery to evade her. As if sensing the chill in the temperature around him, Lin Xiao stood behind Song Qingyao and spoke cautiously. "Boss Song, what should we do next?" Xiao Bufan was afraid that he would not be able to control himself and would become soft-hearted, so he avoided Song Qingyao's gaze and looked to the other side calmly, with a hint of coldness in his tone. Chapter 19. What else can I do? Just wait. When had Song Qingyao ever suffered such indifference? Xiao Bufan, you'd better think it over carefully, and don't beg me to see you when the time comes. Xiao Bufan was silent for a few seconds, then smiled and said, "This lady is a bit too arrogant. Not to mention that the Xiao Group never needs to ask anyone for help, even if there is something, I'm afraid." He glanced at Song Qingyao indifferently, and stabbed her without hesitation. "It will take 6 years." As someone who had loved Song Qingyao deeply for 3 whole years, Xiao Bufan knew exactly what kind of words would irritate her. Lin Xiao felt that he was about to get goosebumps from the chill emanating from Song Qingyao. "Good. Xiao Bufan, you are doing very well." Song Qingyao gritted her teeth and squeezed out a word from between her lips. After 3 years of marriage, she never knew that this man could be so sharp-tongued. On their way back to Song Group, Lin Xiao couldn't stand the silence anymore and spoke. "Boss Song, aren't we going to discuss work with the Xiao Group? What should we do now? Besides, the gentleman doesn't seem to buy your story." Lin Xiao still didn't dare to say the second half of the sentence. Song Qingyao was silent. When she thought of Xiao Bufan's confident and flamboyant face and that dazzling look, she couldn't help but feel angry. "Make arrangements and cancel all cooperation with the Xiao Group." Lin Xiao turned around in disbelief and glanced at Song Qingyao. The Song Group and the Xiao Group have been cooperating for many years. Suddenly cancelling all cooperation will cause considerable losses to the Xiao Group, but the Song Group will definitely not be able to escape. But looking at his boss's determined face, Lin Xiao understood that this was definitely not a decision made by Song Qingyao on impulse. At this time, the Xiao Group. After Song Qingyao left, Xiao Bufan stood there, restrained his smile, and remained silent for a while. Extraordinary. Seeing that he hadn't spoken, Zhang Zhirong became a little worried and turned his head to look at Xiao Bufan with concern. Puff. But what he didn't expect was that Xiao Bufan actually laughed out loud. "Uncle Zhang, I didn't expect you to be so humorous. You could think of such a way to annoy Song Qingyao. I'm afraid she has never been rejected in such a way in her life." Seeing that Xiao Bufan was not affected by Song Qingyao, Zhang Zhirong breathed a sigh of relief. He scratched the back of his head a little embarrassedly and smiled. "These are what the 3 young ladies of the Gu family told us in advance." Thinking of Song Qingyao's humiliated look, Xiao Bufan had only 2 words in his mind: satisfying. "My sisters are so thoughtful." Thinking of his 3 sisters who were so considerate, Xiao Bufan felt warm inside. "But, Uncle Zhang, please don't make jokes like this next time. If word gets out that the line for an invitation to me is 6 years later, people might think I'm being a big shot or something. Who dares?" Zhang Zhirong's eyes widened with anger, as if he would immediately roll up his sleeves and fight anyone who dared to have a problem with Xiao Bufan. "Besides, I'm not kidding." He said the latter sentence quite seriously. "You mean, the business I need to handle now is already scheduled for 6 years later?" There was a hint of shock in Xiao Bufan's eyes. "It's not a business, just an invitation from some outstanding women." As he said this, Zhang Zhirong deliberately emphasized the word, outstanding. Then, Xiao Bufan watched Zhang Zhirong retrieve the invitation list from the IT system. Chapter 20. Only then did Xiao Bufan realize that his sisters might not be joking with him. He rubbed his temples lightly with a headache. I'm already married. Hearing Xiao Bufan say this, Zhang Zhirong squinted at him as if he had heard something incomprehensible. What's the impact? As long as you are willing, I think the young ladies of the Gu family can do it even if you change your relationship with someone on the list every day. Hearing this, Xiao Bufan's scalp suddenly went numb. He held his forehead with his hand helplessly. With the abilities of his sisters, it seemed that they could really make him have a new and better girlfriend every day. At this point, Xiao Bufan suddenly remembered something, turned around and looked at the timetables of various countries hanging in the lobby of the Xiao Group, and asked, "Didn't the young lady say that my elder sister will be back soon? Uncle Zhang, do you know when my elder sister will be back? I can go to pick her up at the airport." Zhang Zhirong's expression was a little solemn. The young lady had already booked a flight ticket, but it seems something happened, so she didn't rush back to the country. Xiao Bufan's heart suddenly tensed up, and his face was full of worry. What happened? It's not a matter of life and death. It seems like they are looking for a video, but I don't know what video they are looking for. Zhang Zhirong waved his hand hurriedly to stop Xiao Bufan from thinking wildly. Xiao Bufan's heart suddenly lifted, and then he slowly let it go. At the same time, he also had a doubt in his heart. What video was the elder sister looking for? How could it delay her trip back to China? You know, Jiu Bebe is a person who always keeps her word. Unless it is an extremely urgent matter, you can't stop her. I still have to find time to ask my elder sister. When Xiao Bufan thought about his elder sister preparing to rush back to China just after the news of his and Song Qingyao's divorce came out, he felt a slight bitterness in his heart. After all, family members care about you the most. As for the eldest lady, as long as you are well, she will be fine with everything. Thinking of how much the three young ladies of the Gu family valued Xiao Bufan, Zhang Zhirong had a gratified smile on his face. Fortunately, after President Xiao left, there were still people from the Li family protecting the eldest young master. Otherwise, facing these jackals and tigers of the Xiao Group, I'm afraid he would be eaten till not even a bone would be left. Xiao Bufan nodded and got into the private elevator that belonged only to the president. Before the elevator closed, he said to Zhang Zhirong, "Uncle Zhang, Qin Yin and I are going to attend an auction tomorrow, so I'm afraid I won't be in the company for most of the time." "Okay." Zhang Zhirong nodded, "I'll take care of it." Xiao Bufan took the elevator alone to the president's office to handle company affairs, but what he didn't notice was that at the corner of the hall, Zhao Li was looking at the direction of the elevator with cold eyes. Bang! The door of the president's office was roughly pushed open. Xiao Bufan frowned slightly and looked towards the door with displeasure. "Uncle, don't you know the etiquette of knocking before entering a house?" Xiao Bufan understood what Zhao Li was thinking, but at least for now, Zhao Li probably didn't want to fall out with him. And this is indeed the case. Zhao Li's face turned as black as if covered with soot after being scolded by the junior, but he didn't say anything more about it. Bang! He threw a stack of documents in front of Xiao Bufan. "This is the second half of the project launch materials." Zhao Li walked unceremoniously and sat down on the sofa in the office, raised his chin arrogantly, and looked at Xiao Bufan with contempt. He just didn't believe that Xiao Bufan could find any loopholes to stop this project. It's extraordinary. I'm not trying to scare you, but there's a lot of information to start this project. If you take over later, it will probably take up a lot of time. Why do you have to be so stubborn? As I said, since I've already arranged everything, why not just start it according to my uncle's arrangement? Chapter 21. As long as the project is launched as usual, what does it matter if Xiao Bufan takes the position of chairman? A shell company will never make any splash. Xiao Bufan opened the document sent by Zhao Ligang with a cold look in his eyes. I found the data above to be complicated, especially some parts that gave people a feeling of being deliberately disrupted, and I immediately sneered in my heart. Do you think he would surrender with just this little trick? This project involves a wide range of areas. As the chairman, I will naturally take care of it myself, so your uncle doesn't have to worry about it anymore. You should think carefully about the accounting problems in previous years and how to solve them when I check them out. Xiao Bufan lowered his head and flipped through the documents, not even wanting to give Zhao Li a glance. You! Zhao Li's heart began to panic. He stood up suddenly, stretched out his hand and pointed at Xiao Bufan fiercely. But seeing that the other party didn't even look at him, he could only force out an ugly smile from between his teeth. What's the problem with this account? Bufan, do you really not trust your uncle? Hearing what Zhao Li said, Xiao Bufan's eyes flashed with sarcasm. Of course I believe you, otherwise, why would I let my uncle manage the group for me for so many years? Having said that, Zhao Li is not a fool. Xiao Bufan's unabashed mockery immediately made him angry and embarrassed. You should take care of the current project first. Do you want to stop it just for some reason? Don't even think about it. Xiao Bufan, let me see how capable you are. After saying that, Zhao Li swung his hand down heavily, creating a gust of wind, and strode out of the president's office with great anger. Xiao Bufan looked at the heavily closed door, his eyes somewhat dark. There is definitely something wrong with this project. He must intercept it. As soon as Zhao Li walked out of the president's office, he felt his cell phone vibrate. He opened it and received a message. Explain. Zhao Li angrily sat down on the boss chair in the office, stopped the chair from rocking back, put his hands on his knees, looked up at the person who came. I asked you to investigate what Xiao Bufan has done in the past 10 years, where is the information? When the visitor heard Zhao Li's question, a look of embarrassment appeared on his face. I spent a lot of energy to find out, but, for some reason, it's as if this person has disappeared from the face of the earth for 10 years. That means we found nothing. Zhao Li interrupted the man without any hesitation. No. Actually, I did find some, but they weren't from 10 years ago. They were a video from a few days ago. The man waved his hands to deny it again and again. As he spoke, he handed over a tablet with a video playing on it. If Xiao Bufan was present at this time, he would definitely notice that this was the video of him and Ziyishuang dancing together in the bar. The chairman of the Xiao Group actually danced erotically in a bar. He doesn't even feel ashamed. Zhao Li angrily threw the tablet onto the desk in front of him with a loud bang. I gave you so much money, and you only gave me a video like this. He was extremely dissatisfied with the results of the investigation. I will continue to investigate. But, I feel that when I investigate, I encounter obstacles everywhere. It feels like someone is interfering and preventing me from investigating, so. The people in charge of investigating Xiao Bufan were also in a difficult situation. After all, they had spent money but found nothing. I don't want to hear all this nonsense from you. Zhao Li looked at the video still playing on the tablet and seemed to have thought of a good idea. His eyes gradually darkened and the corners of his mouth slowly curled up. Since you are in this line of work, you should have a lot of connections with the media, right? You post this video online and say. Chapter 22. A smug smile gradually appeared on Zhao Li's face, as if he had already seen the scene of Xiao Bufan's downfall. Just say that the eldest young master of the Xiao family has been working as a gigolo in a bar for the past few years without a trace. It would be better to add some more self-degradation, self-abasement. But what Zhao Li didn't know was that in order to prevent him from using any means necessary to get the project started, Xiao Bufan had already arranged for Zhang Zhirong to install a bug under his desk. Although the means are immoral, for a businessman, being kind to the enemy is being cruel to himself. Therefore, Xiao Bufan heard every word Zhao Li said. My uncle is only capable of these little tricks. The corners of Xiao Bufan's mouth curled up, but the smile did not reach his eyes. Want to mess with me? Then let's see who will win in the end. In order to ruin Xiao Bufan's reputation once and for all, Zhao Li even spent a huge amount of money, mobilized all his personal relationships, and bought the hot search lists on various platforms for a huge sum of money. Shocked. The heir to a wealthy family is actually such a person behind the scenes. Such a message quickly became a hot topic. When Xiao Bufan saw the title, he almost laughed out loud. Zhao Li was also proudly opening his mobile phone, preparing to check the results. But strangely, the message page could not be refreshed, so he hurriedly called the person responsible for spreading the information. What's going on? Why can't I see Xiao Bufan's headlines? What's going on? The person in charge of the back-end operation hurriedly wiped the sweat from his forehead and said, I'm afraid that this bombshell news is too popular, causing too many people to flock in, so there is a problem with the server, right? When Zhao Li heard what the person in charge said, he felt that it made sense. It was worthy of the money he spent to create this news, right? So he nodded with satisfaction. Okay, got it. Zhao Li hung up the phone and leisurely made himself a pot of coffee, just waiting for Xiao Bufan to see the news and kneel down to beg for mercy when he was desperate. TSK TSK TSK. The more he thought about it, the more proud he felt. Just when Zhao Li thought he had won the game and was just waiting for Xiao Bufan to beg for mercy, the internet was indeed in an uproar over another piece of news. What's going on? The person who claims to be the famous lady of Xiao Group is actually this kind of person behind the scenes. Oh my god. This man is not. That's right, the video that was sweeping the entire internet had suddenly changed from the video of Xiao Bufan and Ziyi Shuang dancing in a bar to the video of Zhao Yangwei posing in front of a man. For a while, Zhao Yangwei also received all kinds of ugly insults. What's going on? Zhao Yangwei didn't react for a long time. She was so angry at the insult that her lips turned white and her whole face was shaking uncontrollably. If Zhao Li hadn't been determined to kill Xiao Bufan, perhaps the news would not have spread so quickly. Until Zhao Yangwei called, Zhao Li was still taking a leisurely nap with his eyes closed. Dad! Look at what's going on the internet. Zhao Yinwei's sharp cry almost pierced Zhao Li's eardrum, causing him to look somewhat displeased. What happened that's making such a fuss? Don't forget that you are a famous lady, and you are not ashamed to yell and scream. Zhao Li has always taken great pains to cultivate his daughter. After all, if he could help his daughter find a rich husband, it would only benefit him and not harm him. What kind of socialite is this? I am so embarrassed. I am almost dying of embarrassment. She deliberately ripped her clothes to seduce people. The internet has a high-definition resolution of Blu-ray. Every point, even every hair, can be seen clearly. Zhao Yangwei couldn't stop her tears from flowing when she thought about the ladylike image she had maintained for so many years, which was destroyed in an instant. After hearing his daughter say this, Zhao Li realized that something was wrong. What's going on? Didn't I ask the media to release the video of Xiao Bufan dancing erotically with someone else? What kind of video is this? Zhao Li was familiar with the title and copy. But this video alone was completely unfamiliar to him. What? You sent this? Zhao Yangwei was also confused. Dad, you are trying to kill me. I won't live anymore. Woo woo. Zhao Yangwei cried and made a scene, making Zhao Li's head almost explode. He shouted angrily, "Shut up." Under the intimidation of her father, Zhao Yangwei finally stopped her howling. It must be Xiao Bufan, it must be him. He must have swapped the video, otherwise, it wouldn't be such a coincidence. After all, he was a shrewd fox. Zhao Li immediately thought of Xiao Bufan as the responsible person. Zhao Yangwei also reacted, that's right. Xiao Bufan was clearly there at the time. But is not in this video, it must be him. Dad, quickly remove the post and the trending search. Got it. Wait. Zhao Li hurriedly said this, hung up Zhao Yinwei's phone, and immediately contacted his assistant. However, after a while, the assistant said awkwardly, the trending search cannot be removed. Xiao Bufan heard what happened in Zhao Li's office through the eavesdropping device, and his expression was as cold as ever. He played with the custom-made fountain pen in his hand and sneered again, stealing a chicken but losing the rice. I guess this is what you mean by these people, right? Even if he heard Zhao Yinwei screaming and shouting in despair, Xiao Bufan would not feel the slightest sympathy for her. At this time, in Zhao Li's office, Zhao Li's expression was no longer able to be described by the word ugly. How can there be no way to withdraw it? Since I spent so much money to post the trending search, you can just tell me how much more it costs to withdraw it. When Zhao Li heard his assistant say that the order could not be withdrawn, he was still wondering if the media was planning to ask for an exorbitant price. If so, he would probably have no choice but to accept the loss and pay the money. After all, as long as the problem can be solved, it's not a big deal. However, the assistant was also in a difficult situation. Mr. Zhao, from what I heard, it doesn't seem to be a matter of money. It seems that as soon as a change is made, a bug will appear inexplicably in the background, and then it will be completely inoperable. This. Chapter 23. Zhao Li has been able to control the Xiao Group for so many years. When this situation occurs, he will definitely not act rashly again. I didn't expect that Xiao Bufan was so secretive. Compared to Zhao Li, who was gritting his teeth in the office and wishing to eat Xiao Bufan's flesh and suck Xiao Bufan's blood, Xiao Bufan seemed to be in a very good mood in the office at this moment. What's wrong? When Xiao Bufan saw the words Qinyan displayed on the screen, he had already guessed why the other party called. "Brother Xiao, are you okay?" Qinyan smiled slightly after hearing the lazy voice on the other end of the phone, which didn't sound like anything was wrong. "It sounds like you're in a good mood." "Well, it's okay." Xiao Bufan raised his eyebrows slightly. Qinyan seemed to be infected by his emotions and smiled slightly. "Did you do that thing on the internet?" This sentence sounded like a question, but Xiao Bufan knew that Qinyan would not come to accuse him, so he pretended to be stupid. "What's going on? Isn't it just some boring gossip? I can't even ask for this kind of good thing that people are coveting, so naturally I won't pay attention to it." After Qinyan joked twice, she said seriously, "The auction will start tomorrow. I'll pick you up." Tomorrow's auction. Thinking of the set of small-town Sansai porcelain bowls and the scene before his father's death, Xiao Bufan's mood gradually sank, and the light in his eyes gradually dimmed. Zhao Li, since he is so inhumane, don't blame him for his cruel methods. Ruined reputation. This is just the appetizer. Okay. Xiao Bufan answered decisively. He even wanted to see what kind of wonderful expression Zhao Li would have if he saw the set of porcelain bowls he bought. "But I'll have to trouble you to find someone to cooperate with me. It originally belonged to my Xiao family. I do want to redeem it, but I'm not a sucker. I'd better not spend unnecessary money." Qinyan was a big star in the spotlight, but auctions and the like were also places she frequented. She was best aware of the twists and turns that went on behind the scenes. "Okay." Qinyan agreed immediately. As for Xiao Bufan's request, as long as she could do it, she would basically do everything. "But you have to dress formally." Xiao Bufan narrowed his eyes suspiciously. "Why? Is there some important person coming?" His first reaction was that he thought Qinyan wanted to introduce some important person to him. "She's not a big shot, even Ziyi Shuang will go to the auction, and she kept talking about buying something rare for you." If Xiao Bufan was right in front of Qinyan, he would definitely be able to see the mockery on Qinyan's face at this moment. However, even though he couldn't see her expression, Xiao Bufan could tell from her words that she was in for a good show. "If you make fun of me and her again, we'll be friends forever." "That won't do." Qinyan smiled and shrugged. How could the friendship between her and Xiao Bufan disappear in just a few words? While the two were talking about the auction, Song Qingyao received a call from her mother Zhang Meiyu on her way back to the company. Listening to Zhang Meiyu yelling on the other end of the phone, Song Qingyao felt a throbbing pain in her temples. "Turn around and go back to the old house." Song Qingyao whispered instructions to Lin Xiao. Lin Xiao immediately turned the steering wheel and turned the car around. Because of Xiao Bufan, Song Qingyao has never liked returning to the Song family's old house. Every time she returned to the old house, she was forced to accept a lesson from Mr. Song. Fortunately, Mr. Song is not at the old house today. "My girl, you're getting married soon, why are you still wandering around? You can't let Lu Cheng worry about everything about the wedding alone, right?" As soon as she saw Song Qingyao, Zhang Meiyu hurriedly went to greet her. He didn't have to worry about it. Didn't he already have someone in charge? Song Qingyao's expression was somewhat cold. She had already hired a wedding planner at a high salary. What else was there to worry about? How can it be the same? You have to pay attention to it yourself. I heard there will be an auction in the south of the city tomorrow. There will be a lot of treasures and antiques. Why don't you take Lu Cheng with you? Buy him a gift or something. It's just right for me to take your sister to have a look as well." Thinking of the fact that Lu Cheng had not been at ease because of his paralysis, Song Qingyao felt that what Zhang Meiyu said made sense and nodded, "Okay." Having gotten the result she wanted, Zhang Meiyu let Song Qingyao leave contentedly. Song Qingyao went to the study, and all she could think of was Xiao Bufan's cold and heartless look during the day. What was Xiao Bufan like in the past? Gentle, eyes full of love, whispering softly like a veil, and seeing her will turn your cheeks red. It was not until the blue screen lit up that Song Qingyao suddenly came back to her senses and her face gradually became ugly. Why would she be dazed because of Xiao Bufan? The next day came in the blink of an eye. Qinyan drove her sexy supercar to Xiao Bufan's front and was immediately struck by his handsomeness. How can other men survive if you make them afraid to compete with you for the auction items? Qinyan's admiring gaze fell on Xiao Bufan and she could hardly take her eyes off him. Xiao Bufan curled his lips and smiled. If this is really possible, it would be great. Won't there be a lot of business people coming to this auction? Yeah. Qin Yin nodded. Before the auction begins, there will be a banquet specifically for communication. This is also to allow all guests to communicate in advance to avoid a situation where the two forces are fighting. If you want to get angry over this, there is no need to do so. Xiao Bufan nodded. This arrangement is indeed the best. Anyway, he only wants to buy his father's small Tang Sansai porcelain bowl, and he can just take a look at the other things. Xiao Bufan's gorgeous attire amazed countless women. Chapter 24. Wait a moment. Qin Yin, who was accompanying Xiao Bufan into the auction hall, suddenly stopped. She seemed to have something urgent to do, so she said something to Xiao Bufan and left. Boss Xiao. As soon as Qin Yin left, a woman came up to him eagerly. I've heard of Mr. Xiao's name for a long time. I didn't expect you to come to this auction. I wonder which treasure you've set your eyes on. I'm sure Mr. Xiao will definitely want to get it. As she spoke, she skillfully handed over her business card. Xiao Bufan lowered his eyes and found that it was Li Qin, the general manager of Jingqian Company who had recently cooperated with Xiao Group. Well, there is indeed something of interest. In response to Li Qin's show of goodwill, Xiao Bufan politely replied. He forcefully suppressed and took back the Xiao Group, and he had many interpersonal relationships to deal with, including his own reputation, so Xiao Bufan naturally would not be as cold to everyone as Song Qingyao. Li Qin also wanted to continue cooperating with the Xiao Group, so she was particularly attentive. Oh? What kind of treasure is it? Why don't you tell me so that I can borrow some of it to offer my appreciation? Not only does she want to rely on the Xiao Group, other companies are also unwilling to fall behind. So, with Li Qin's start, many company general managers also surrounded Xiao Bufan. Everyone has witnessed Mr. Xiao's ability. Mr. Xiao's presence at the auction today has elevated the entire auction to a higher level. Yes. If I had known that Mr. Xiao was coming, wouldn't I have brought the sapphire necklace I recently purchased from Hainan here for Mr. Xiao to take a look at? Your sapphire is not a rare item. I have been wanting to send my Hainan pearwood furniture to Mr. Xiao for a long time, but I have never had the time. For a moment, a group of people surrounded Xiao Bufan, all showing their desire to curry favor with him. Xiao Bufan was surrounded in the center of the crowd. He could only suppress his impatience and respond one by one with a gentle attitude. As the chairman of a group company, Xiao Bufan prefers loyal people. But at this point, he had to admit that these cunning and opportunistic people could often be of greater use. Because these people are ambitious. I heard that a set of Tang Sansai small porcelain bowls will be exhibited today. I am quite interested in it, so I hope you can give them a try. Since the auction house held this banquet to allow guests to communicate, there was no need for me to hide my purpose. So Xiao Bufan directly expressed his thoughts. Li Qin exclaimed, that set of Tang Sansai is indeed beautiful. I was tempted by it before, but since it is Mr. Xiao's favorite, we will definitely not interfere. Don't you agree? Yeah. After all, these old foxes knew what was good for them. After Li Qin's shout, most people said that they would no longer participate in the auction of the set of Tang Sansai small porcelain bowls. In that case, I would like to thank you all here. Xiao Bufan smiled lightly and nodded slightly. Many people present showed flattered expressions. They obviously did not expect that Xiao Bufan would be so gentle. But it was Xiao Bufan's actions that won everyone's hearts and made them more determined to cooperate with the Xiao Group. However, Xiao Bufan only mentioned it so simply, but it was still heard by someone with ulterior motives. Chapter 25. At this time, Zhang Meiyu, who had just arrived at the auction venue, was looking around, trying to find Song Qingyao. Mom! Why hasn't my sister arrived yet? The woman standing next to Zhang Meiyu, holding her arm, and dressed up beautifully, as if to show with every ounce of her body that she was rich, was none other than Song Qingyao's sister, Song Chuchu. It should be soon. Zhang Meiyu looked at the door and didn't see Song Qingyao's car. Qingyao told you to study hard in school. If you insist on coming with me, don't cry if you get scolded again. Song Chuchu is still just a college student now. I don't care. I heard from my classmates that there is a pair of emerald earrings carved by Master Annie at the auction today. Mom, no matter what, you have to ask my sister to buy them for me today. She also wanted to wear the jewelry to school to show off, so she clamored to come and join in the fun. Okay, let your sister buy it for you. During the conversation, Zhang Meiyu noticed a group of people gathered not far away, Chu, look at all the people gathered there, is your sister there? No, that's the chairman of the Xiao Group. After all, she is a young person, and Song Chu's ears are much sharper than Zhang Meiyu's. She heard other people talking about the chairman of the Xiao Group early on. Having lived in Rongqing for many years, Zhang Meiyu had certainly heard of the name of the Xiao Group. She immediately showed a happy expression on her face. I heard a long time ago that the eldest young master of the Xiao family has returned. If you can make friends with such a big shot, it will definitely be of great help to your sister. As she spoke, Zhang Meiyu hurriedly grabbed Song Chu's arm and strode towards the group of people surrounding Xiao Bufan. Mom. His last name is Xiao. So what if his last name is Xiao? He is different from that beggar Xiao Bufan. He is the eldest son of the Xiao family. If he hooks up with your sister, wouldn't the economy of Rongqing be completely controlled by our Song family? As she spoke, Zhang Meiyu's eyes began to reveal a look of longing. Mom. Are you possessed by a ghost? I'm already engaged to Brother Cheng, how could I possibly be involved with the eldest young master of the Xiao family? Besides, Brother Cheng is so nice. Song Chu pouted reluctantly. What do you know? Zhang Meiyu slapped Song Chu on the head without any hesitation. Lu Cheng is a cripple after all, how can he compare to the eldest young master of the Xiao family? Besides, your sister and Lu Cheng are only engaged, and our Song family has not publicly acknowledged it, nor have we invited other people to witness it, so it doesn't count. While muttering, Zhang Meiyu dragged Song Chu away without caring about her feelings at all. Boss Xiao. I have really heard of your great name for a long time. Before squeezing into the crowd, Zhang Meiyu started shouting loudly. Seeing that no one made way for her, she could only continue to shout, I am the mother of the chairman of the Song Group. I have heard that our Song Group and Xiao Group have cooperated for a long time. How about coming here to exchange feelings? Her voice was not small, and when others heard the words, Song Group, they all made way. Just when Zhang Meiyu was proud of her son's fame and knew that there were still so many people who were afraid of his reputation, she saw clearly the face of the chairman of Xiao Group in front of her. The smile suddenly froze on her face. Xiao Bufan. Song Chu naturally also noticed the person in front of her, and the sound that pierced the eardrums rang out directly. How could it be you? Chapter 26. The scream made Xiao Bufan frown slightly. In fact, as soon as Zhang Meiyu opened her mouth, Xiao Bufan had already figured out who their voice came from. Looking at the shocked looks on their faces, he slowly raised his lips and said, Mrs. Song, do you want to communicate with me? There seemed to be a bit of teasing in it. Xiao Bufan's question was like a big slap in the face, hitting Zhang Meiyu hard. Xiao Bufan. How come you are the eldest young master of the Xiao family? She had met Xiao Bufan's parents before. He looked like a poor man, so how could he be the former chairman of the Xiao family? You must be an imposter. Zhang Meiyu pointed her hand at Xiao Bufan viciously. The more she thought about it, the more outrageous it seemed to her. You actually impersonated the eldest young master of the Xiao family. Xiao Bufan, you must be crazy because you are poor. Hearing Zhang Meiyu's nonsensical questioning of himself, Xiao Bufan felt it was absurd and funny. He also didn't expect to meet Zhang Meiyu at this auction. However, he didn't want to have any entanglement with the people from the Song family, so he just pretended not to know them. Mrs. Song must be joking. I have never met Mrs. Song before, but she said I was a fake right after I came. Is this the Song family's usual style of slandering others' reputation like this? Xiao Bufan, have you lost your memory? I'm your mother. Zhang Meiyu walked up to Xiao Bufan angrily and grabbed his hand. Xiao Bufan lowered his eyes, revealing a bit of indifference and ruthlessness. As everyone knows, the wife of the chairman of the Xiao Group had a car accident in her early years and is now lying on a hospital bed in a vegetative state. Who the hell are you? After saying that, he mercilessly shook off Zhang Meiyu's hand. Zhang Meiyu couldn't stand steadily and immediately knelt on the ground. When has Zhang Meiyu, who has always relied on the reputation of Song Qingyao to bully others, ever suffered such humiliation? Being pushed down by Xiao Bufan made her lose face in front of so many business people. It can be said that she was in an extremely embarrassing situation. Xiao Bufan. I must expose your true face, you are just a fake. Zhang Meiyu, who was almost insane, angrily took out her mobile phone, trying to find out the truth that Xiao Bufan was not the eldest son of the Xiao family. However, how could Zhang Meiyu, who never took Xiao Bufan seriously, save anything related to Xiao Bufan in her mobile phone. Xiao Bufan, just because mom doesn't have anything about you doesn't mean I don't have it. Look what this is. As she spoke, Song Qingyao stood up holding her cell phone. She also didn't believe that Xiao Bufan was the eldest master of the Xiao family. Everyone came over curiously to take a look, but when they saw the photo on Song Qingyao phone of a man who looked like Xiao Bufan, wiping the table with his head down, they looked at each other for a moment. Maybe it's just similar people. The onlookers basically had something to ask of the Xiao Group. Being familiar with the ways of the world, they immediately began to defend Xiao Bufan. I also think it might just be a resemblance. However, I have to say, this guy really looks a lot like Mr. Xiao. Har har har. However, I heard that President Song's husband. Seeing the truth of the matter slowly being uncovered, Xiao Bufan only needed a look to make the man who mentioned Song Qingyao shut up. I don't know who the person in the picture is. And who are you? I don't want to know either. Xiao Bufan's temperament was like a flower from a high mountain, and his eyes were full of coldness and alienation. I don't need to prove to you whether I am the eldest son of the Xiao family. The cooperation between the Xiao family and the Song family has been cancelled. What? The cooperation between the two companies was completely cancelled. Everyone who heard the news was horrified. Doesn't that mean we will soon be faced with the situation of having to choose sides? Chapter 27. Xiao Bufan, you are pretending. Song Qingyao still refused to give up. How could she tolerate the person who had always been oppressed and bullied by her looking at her with such trash-like eyes? Before she could continue to slander Xiao Bufan, a casual and pleasant voice suddenly came. Some people are blind and think that everyone is blind like her. Xiao Bufan looked in the direction of the people coming and going and suddenly smiled. Don't you have something urgent? Yes, it's done. Qinyan slowly walked to Xiao Bufan's side, then raised her chin towards a place not far away. Well, you must ask me to pick you up in person, otherwise you won't condescend to come here. Hearing Qinyan say this, Xiao Bufan followed his gaze and saw the elegant Ziyi standing not far away. The whole audience was in an uproar. Chairman Ziyi of Luoyang Group is actually here at the auction. It seems that some rare and precious treasure has been unveiled at this auction. Zhang Meiyu was holding Song Qingyao hand at this time. Seeing that everyone was focused on Xiao Bufan, she shouted unwillingly, the man surnamed Qin is just an actor. He is so close to Xiao Bufan. I'm afraid they are both acting together to deceive people. If Xiao Bufan is the eldest son of the Xiao family, then wouldn't I really be? No. This is absolutely impossible. She would never make a mistake. Boss Li, Manager Wang, don't be fooled by this man. He used to be a humble servant in our Song family, only interested in profit. Seeing Xiao Bufan's attitude, Zhang Meiyu immediately turned her target to the leaders of other groups. Excuse me, auntie. Do you see clearly what this is? Xiao Bufan was too disdainful to prove himself to Zhang Meiyu, but Qinyan couldn't stand it. She grabbed Xiao Bufan's hand and lifted it up, revealing the Black Hawk ring. It's just a broken ring. What's the matter? Do you think that a ring that anyone can wear can prove that you are the eldest young master of the Xiao family? Laugh. A sneer was clearly heard by everyone. Ziyi moved forward and everyone took a step back. Ziyi glanced at the two of them with a cold gaze, and said in a coercive tone, I didn't expect that there are still such ignorant people in Rongchen who don't even recognize the Black Hawk badge. After saying that, she walked to Xiao Bufan's side. Suddenly, she changed her previous sneer into a coquettish expression, Brother Xiao, please stop talking to brainless people, it will make you stupid. Her action made everyone else present suddenly silent. Is this really the famous chairman of Luoyang Group? Looking at the glowing black eagle ring, Zhang Meiyu's expression was a little dull. How is it possible? Are you really the eldest son of the Xiao family? The eldest son of the Xiao family who is so powerful that he can curb the economic lifeline of the entire Rongchen? Then why have you been in our Song family for so many years? I can't believe it, but I have to believe it. Shut up. At this moment, a majestic voice sounded. Song Qingyao rushed to the auction site.